Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Next Gen Racing PROTO GT3 Championship, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform only known as iRacing, available on PC. And tonight marks round 11. That's right, it is the penultimate round in the 12-round calendar, and my goodness, we have got a cracking pair of races in store tonight, taking place at the German circuit known as the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecke, or the GP circuit in short. And it's going to be the case that over the course of tonight's racing, we may have some championship crowns to award. Alternatively, could we see potential championships that are outstanding go all the way to the final round in a week's time that takes place at Le Mans? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but our schedule for tonight, times being as follows: in British Summer Time, that's BST or UTC +1, is as follows. In approximately 14 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with our qualifying session, and that will be the 20-minute qualifying session to determine our grid order for the purposes of race number 1, after which we'll be going straight into race 1, which will be our 15-minute sprint race, where the only strategy is to get to the front of your class and stay at the head of it, come the checkered flag, and if you can, pick up the fastest lap as well to get the maximum possible set of points. We'll then be taking a brief break before returning for the build-up to the feature race, the 60-minute feature race. That is our second of our two races on the schedule for tonight, and that will be kicking off at 9 o'clock this evening, so we'll get back sometime around 5 to 9 to give you the build-up there, and it'll be the case that the strategy is just as important as the outright pace in the feature race with that all-important mandatory pit stop. Do you pit early? Do you pit at the midpoint, or do you pit late in order to get your place out on the circuit and unleash your ultimate pace over the course of the two stints? Now, we should point out that tonight's broadcast is a post-round broadcast, so the racing actually took place earlier this week on what was Wednesday the 29th of June, but it's the case due to scheduling we weren't available to cover it live, so we are covering it tonight as a post-round broadcast, which means we are looking at iRacing replay files, and therefore we will not quite have everything that we could with a live experience, particularly jumping back to looking at replays of major events. But beyond that, I, as your commentator and host, do not know what has happened, and therefore it's going to be as raw as possible. We'll try and provide you as much a live experience as we possibly can. And who's we? Well, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I am your commentator for this series and bring you all the racing action until the final curtain call. Now, in terms of the broadcast tonight, it has been brought to you via free media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are tuning in via YouTube, you can go to the official Next Gen Racing YouTube channel. Alternatively, if you are a Facebook user, you can go to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Or last but not least, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 to get your fill on Twitch. But this series is sponsored by both Apex Racing Academy and IMB Raceware, and indeed we're indebted to them. Without them, we'd not be able to go racing, and it's only fair that we introduce our sponsors for this series. So we start off with Apex Racing Academy, of course, and Apex Racing Academy is not just a setup shop. They're dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drives and features not found in other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week, we host, or indeed Apex Racing Academy, I should say, host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions. And in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synchronized directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on, which is where it should be. Interested? Why not sign up now at apexracingac.com. That website again, apexracingac.com. And of course, Next Gen Racing, very grateful to continue working with Apex Racing Academy. They have been one of our partners for our iRacing series since the very start. You'll remember back to the GT3 Championship Season 1, Apex Racing Academy, the title sponsor of the series, and we're very happy to be continuing our partnership with Apex Racing Academy. And their contribution to the PROTO GT3 Championship is not just in terms of back-end organisation support, but also with regards to prizes for the Apex Racing Academy classes, and they are contributing the prizes of what is Apex Racing Academy yearly yearly subscriptions to our winners in both the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy and GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy classes. So you'll be looking out for those classes that are titled GT3 ARA and then Pro or AM. And it is the case that our winners in those championship classes will be picking up those yearly subscriptions. Meanwhile, our winners in the LMP2 Pro class, or what used to be known as the LMP Apex Racing Academy Pro class, they'll be taking the prizes from a cash prize pool as provided by NXTGEN Racing directly, the exact value to be confirmed. But we're very grateful to continue our work with Apex Racing Academy. We must come from one of our title sponsors to our other title sponsor for this series, and that is IMB Racewear. So IMB Racewear delivers racewear for both sim and real-life racers, which enables the racer to make the impact they always wanted. What sets IMB Racewear apart from the competition, however, is that their racewear provides itself an individuality as it is designed for you, by you, meaning that each product is fully customizable, unlike your typical off-the-shelf racewear products. Whether you're looking for racing gloves, racing shoes or team clothing, there are no limits to levels of customization available. And if you want to know more and get your hands on your own bespoke racewear, be sure to head to imbраcewear.com today for further information. That website again, imbраcewear.com. Indeed, we're grateful to continue our partnership at NextGen Racing with IMB Racewear, a long-standing partnership that dates back a good number of iRacing official seasons, and I think even before those series as well. It is the case that NextGen Racing have been working with IMB Racewear, and in terms of IMB Racewear's contribution to this series, they've been supporting us with the back-end organisation, but also they have provided some prizes for the what used to be known as the IMB Racewear lobby, albeit both lobbies have been merged together now. So it is the case that the prize contribution from IMB Racewear goes to the GT3 Pro and GT3 AM IMB Racewear driver classes, whereby a set of custom gloves are available for our class winners within those GT3 classes. And this also goes alongside a cash prize pool as provided by NextGen Racing, the exact value of which is to be confirmed. Meanwhile, our LMP2 AM class drivers, what used to be known as the LMP2 IMB Racewear AM class, they'll be taking their prize pool from a cash prize pool, which the value of which is to be confirmed, but that has been provided by NextGen Racing directly. Again, we're very grateful to continue working with IMB Racewear, and thank you to them for supporting us in running this series. As we look from our title sponsors to the calendar, it is the case, as we said earlier, it's the penultimate round today. We are now in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, and you can see it is the case that we're in Germany for the Nürburgring circuit, and in a week's time we'll be heading to the French circuit of Le Mans, also known as Circuit de la Sarthe, for the final of our 3 2-hour super endurance rounds on the 6th of July, where we must bring the calendar down on the series. My goodness, the time has flown, dating all the way back to the 6th of April. We kicked things off at Watkins Glen in an absolute spectacle of a race, or a pair of races. We then went to Road Atlanta, and it was the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, followed up by Daytona Road Course for the first of our 3 2-hour super endurance rounds. We then, of course, had that week's break before really starting to make that embedment into the European continent with the Red Bull Ring, then the Hockenheim Ring, then Monza, and then Spa-Francorchamps before taking that final break. And then we started to kick off the final third of the series with Silverstone, followed up by Suzuka last week, and the racing at Suzuka was absolutely frantic. There were moments up and down the field, whereas in the sprint races, alternatively in the feature races, and it is the case that Suzuka absolutely did us justice with regards to the racing action. And now with only 2 rounds left, we've still got plenty of racing to go, but it does make me feel a little bit emotional knowing that this series is gradually heading towards its end. But nonetheless, we look to our championship standings now, and we start off, of course, with the LMP2 Pro class as sponsored by Apex Racing Academy. And whilst the standings do say provisional, I do believe these results have been confirmed, so ignore the provisional title. It is the case that Chris Daines, last time out with that stellar set of performances in both the sprint and the feature, was able to pick up enough points to seal the championship with 2 rounds to go. Indeed, the Danishman from Renault Motorsport being the absolute man to stop, the man to beat, and well, nobody was able to beat him in the end to sealing the championship early. So now, with Gaz Williams in P2 on 366 points, well clear of Dan Skinner, the question is who will finish P3 in the LMP2 Pro class? It's between Skinner, Jamie Dorey, Adam Delmont and Robert De Ceunick, where the drivers there are separated by 56 points from P3 to P6, and it could go either way with regards to who picks up that third place crown come the end. We'll have to wait and find out. Ed Lack in P7, ahead of Phil McDougall in P8, and then Peter Herschel and Alex Everett completing the championship standings. We then come to the LMP2 AM class as sponsored by IMB Racewear, and we can see the complexion here is now starting to take a particular narrative, and that is that Paul Walton, with 2 rounds to go, is starting to open up a gap, and it is looking as though he's got one hand on the championship already, with Stefan Vessels there now the best part of 30 8 points behind. He is trying to close the gap to Walton, but the difference between the two of them has not been in pace. It's not been in strategy. It's been in luck, where Paul Walton has had fortune on his side, albeit he has put in a lot of effort as well, and that's not to detract from him. It is the case that Stefan Wessels has not been able to catch a break for the last 3 rounds. Everything has gone wrong. Anything that could have gone right has gone wrong for Stefan Wessels, and in the end it has been an uphill battle that he has had to fight tooth and nail against. And well, last time out Suzuka, it went horribly wrong when it looked to be going so well, particularly in the sprint race, and now he's got it all to do with 2 rounds remaining. We'll have to wait and see if he's able to pull the cat out of the bag, as they say, or whether it will be the case that P2 is the best he can do. He won't be looking to give up without a fight, however. Paul Scott in P3, really the best of the rest. He's only 9 points clear of Paul Williams, with Sam Holman only a further 7 points behind, back after having to miss Suzuka due to personal circumstances. We look forward to seeing Holman out of the circuit, taking the fight to Williams and Scott. And then Richard Stanton, a sizable 38 points behind Holman in P6 there, but really one of the last late breakers, Richard Stanton, and we look forward to seeing him battling with his brother Jim Stanton, both of them only separated by 6 points. 24 points further back, Jonathan Collins ahead of Baz Meacham and Michael Price complete in the top 10, and then Mark Baker and Jack Wyborn complete the IMB Raceway LMP2 AM class standings. We then head to our GT3 classes, and we start off, of course, with the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, and it is the case that Carmelo Mettello, after another set of great performances at Suzuka, including that win in the sprint race, was able to pick up a great haul, and now is looking to try and seal this championship with 1 round to go. Albeit he can't quite do that, even if everything went perfectly tonight. It is the case it will go to the final round, but Martello will be looking to get the maximum possible points to make it less of a question and more of a guarantee that he can beat Matthew Hodges to the crown, as the Audi R8 driver has really started to take the momentum away from the Ferrari driver of Hodges. Gavin Garner in P3 Alva, 309 points. Keep your eyes out for him. His consistency means he is still in the championship hunt, and if he scores well tonight and manages to beat Martello or Hodges in at least one of the 2 races, he will be there as an outside chance in the season finale. Matt Caruana, unfortunately unable to attend last time out, in P4 and 231 points, ahead of Tom Edmonds. Lee Horn in P6, ahead of Stefan Albanese, who's been growing in form. Edoardo Franceschin in P8, Maurizio Marconi in P9 with that brilliant win in the feature race, a brilliant drive and his maiden win in the series. And then Vin Glenn building that momentum in the BMW M4 in P10 there on 103 points, and continuing to chase after the opportunity of a potential top 5 finish if he maximises his points over the last 2 rounds. Billy Fletcher in P11 ahead of Callum Regarton and William Foll in P13. Then Alistair Kirk, Jean-Louis Deschamps, Andrew Holmes and Maurizio Massi complete the standings. Then we come to the GT3 Pro IMB Raceway class, and it is the case that last time out, in a class of 1, only 1 driver took to the circuit. Lucas Romano, who was our championship leader, was able to seal the championship with 2 rounds to spare. And I do believe, looking at my entry sheet for tonight, we do not have this class attending as of tonight. I do believe it is the case the majority of the drivers have had to withdraw due to personal circumstances, and Lucas Romano was our championship winner last time out at Suzuka, and taking that advantage of 441 points to 258 versus Dirtbouts. You can imagine Lucas Romano is a very happy man indeed. Dirtbouts P2, Jeremy DeBoer P3, Didi D. Blaming P4, Sean Scudder P5, and then Gus Franken, Peter Lemkins, Lamont Wedder, and Matthew Proughton completing the standings there. We then come to the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class, and we can see it is the case that at the very top of the table, Matt Emmons stands, but he's only 3 points clear of Nigel Stock. These two have been exchanging results like it's a case of exchanging stocks on the trade market, and it is the case that Emmons, leading by such a small margin, is down to Nigel Stock's consistency versus the outright pace of Emmons, but the inconsistency behind the wheel of the Audi R8. And can Emmons finally have a night where it doesn't go wrong in one race and pick up enough points to break away from Stock? Or will Stock in the Mercedes AMG be able now to really take the fight in the final 2 rounds and upset the apple cart for Matt Emmons? That will be the question. Matthew Addy there in P3 with some slightly dropped points over the last couple of rounds has fallen a little bit to the wayside in the battle for the top of the championship, but again, much like with Gavin Gardner in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, it is the case that Addy is an outsider here, and if he's able to score well tonight and take key points off of Stock and Emmons, he will be in the hunt for that championship win come the final round. The best of the rest, Sean Cranley Swash there in P4, 235 points. He is 33 points clear of Darren Doherty, with Stuart Taylor in P6, ahead of Jochen Siegert in P7. With the return of the German, he's continuing to build up those points. He's now ahead of Ben Payne by 3 points, and then Morten Oosterhuis and Jordan Pope wrapping up the top 10, with Josep Hermanos, Scott McLean, Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen, Alexander Patak, Miko Andreasen, and Callum Jenkins completing the standings there. We then come to our final class, and it is the case that in the GT3 AM IMB Racewear class, Tristan de Nürburgring is leading by only 7 points after a difficult day at Suzuka for our championship leader, with Lorenzo Gualtieri taking the maximum possible points haul that he could, albeit missing out on a win in what was the sprint race, that going to Elwyn Sykes' maiden win, and therefore Gualtieri closing down de Nürburgring. And will we see him overhaul de Nürburgring tonight, or will his fellow South African come back at him strong? Elwyn Sykes the best of the rest in P3, with Navarro de Bova in P4, ahead of James Slates P5, Davide Favo P6, Mark Sykes P7, Arjen Kregel P8, Kurt van Hoenacker P9, Liam Tapp P10, and then outside the top 10, but not to be forgotten about, Chris Keenan, Gareth Mills and Mark Arrowsmith. Meanwhile, in the team championship, we can tell you that Verano Motorsport currently leading on 865 points. They are the best part of what is there, just over 50 points clear of Racing Team Astra Blue, with RP Motorsport Pro-Am in P3. Next Gen Racing Sam Cases UK in P4, ahead of Next Gen Racing P5. And then completing the top 10, we do have Racing Team Astra Team Orange, RD Simsport, 6R Project Black, Excite iRacing, and Crest Autosport Apex Tracks. Outside the top 10, making up our top 20, Team Tetra Rouge, 2 points clear of DRS Esports LMS1. The rivalry between those two teams, plus much change by DB1, really growing to a crescendo, with Team Racing Netherlands P14 ahead of RP Motorsport Senior. Much change by DB2 P16, TGC Racing P17, Hilliard Esport P18, DRS Esport LMS2 P19, and Hodgson Racing making up that top 20. And then outside the top 20, but not to be forgotten about, Alshoot Esports, Crest Autosport Ferrari, MRC Team, TGC Bottom Split Heroes, and BRM. Well, as for our circuit for tonight, I can tell you it is the case that we are at the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecke, or the BES World Endurance Championship variant, located in Nürburg, Germany. It is the case that this circuit, made up of 16 corners, is one which is a major test of every driver's ability due to its mixture of low and medium speed apexes, its heavy braking zones, and short but rather aggressive straights. There's something for everybody here, and plenty of overtaking opportunities, particularly up into the Vidal chicane of turns 14 and 15. This circuit image provided to us by simracingwiki.com. I think an image, whilst it speaks 1,000 words, doesn't quite tell the story. We'll bring some onboard laps in the qualifying session very shortly. And as for our race rules, a quick recap of the rules. Our drivers are running the iRacing sprint setup for tonight's races, regardless of their class or their car. It is the case it's a fixed series in terms of the setups, and they're all running the iRacing sprint setup. In the sprint race, a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points, and the grid shall be separated into car classes, starting approximately 5 seconds apart. And in the feature race, the add-ons to that are the grid is set as a reverse grid in driver class by order based on the sprint race results. The grid shall be separated once again into car classes with that 5-second gap. We have one mandatory pit stop, and that is where our drivers need to take on fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. Our drivers will have one fast repair available, and the drive-through penalty limit, the instant point count, is increased to 25 rather than 17. But that's enough about rules, regulations and whatnot. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing. Indeed, I am too. We head back to our live pictures now, and it is the case our drivers make their way on a round circuit currently. We do have here, I believe that's Matthew Addy making his way on around, as our drivers are just on their warm-up laps at the moment. I think our LMP2 drivers are actually starting to make their way onto fast laps here, but Addy just making his way on around comfortably at this point in time. And well, this circuit with the 20-minute qualifying session, there's ample time for our drivers to split laps, as Addy there cuts turn number 15, straight lines on there, and that is not a good look for the Lamborghini Huracan driver, who's been showing flashes of brilliance throughout the entirety of the season. But again, the Lamborghini just seems to be that car that goes well for him at certain circuits, but other circuits it just doesn't work out. And going from one Lamborghini driver who is not working out to a Lamborghini driver tonight who is making his debut as a guest, and that is Matthew Turnbull, who you see here making his way through the arena section in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. Here's the case, the Pure Sims guest driver here, where we look forward to seeing how he gets on, and he's been added to the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, and we'll wait to see what the number 64 driver can do in what is a very powerful car. It's a good all-rounder, and it should go quite well here. I'm hearing good things about Turnbull down in the paddock with regards to his outright racing pace, and will he be able to make it work here today in what is a very competitive class, to say the least. Well, we'll have to wait and see as our lap times are starting to come on in, and we do say hello to you guys and girls in the chat. In the meantime, in the YouTube chat there, we say hello to Mr. Stanton, and well, indeed, I'm glad to hear you're doing well, Stanton, particularly in the fact that we've reached the weekend. And hello to Darren Doherty as well, and thank you, Darren. It's good to be back. I do apologise for missing this round live, unfortunately being away on holiday. It is the case I do have to take a break every so often when they do let me out of the commentary box, although don't tell the guys at NXTGEN that. they may not be too happy that I managed to get outside the commentary box for a brief period of time. Oh, I'm only joking. Indeed, my colleagues at NXTGEN Racing, absolutely brilliant guys to work with, definitely tell you that. And we also say hello there to Katie Eames in the Facebook chat. And I did have a good holiday, Katie. And, well, I haven't caught any of the racing action whatsoever. So if you do know a little something about what's happened here today, well, do not try to spoil it too much or give anything away. As we see, getting it wrong there. I think that was Dan Skinner getting it wrong, coming out of what was turn number 7 as he made his way on through. And that is a very difficult, well, in fact, that was turn number 6 there. Turn number 7, of course, being the Dunlop Kira hairpin. As we see here is the case. We do have Paul Scott making his way on through, and we do also say hello to Stefan Vessels there in the YouTube chat. Now, I should point out, ladies and gentlemen, as we do lose Paul Scott there very briefly, I do believe that may be a disconnect for Paul Scott. In fact, I should point out that with regards to some of our South African drivers competing in this round, we do unfortunately expect that we're going to lose some of them between the two races, or we may even lose them during the races, and that is for the fact that if you're not aware, there are power shortages within South Africa at this moment in time, and I do believe that a good number of our drivers based in the country are affected by those. So if we do see a number of our drivers from South Africa disappear between the races, or indeed during the races, that is a contributing factor and may explain things. But just wanted to point that in case you do suddenly wonder why we lose certain individuals, and that may go to explain a little bit, but we'll wait and see. Of course, we hope that doesn't happen. We do hope they're all able to race. Was the more the merrier, as they say. Indeed, some championships on the line, but we'll wait and find out. But what we're not going to wait for too much longer is a fast lap, or indeed what is an on-board lap, as we see Stefan Vessels there getting it a bit wrong coming out of turn 7. I do believe he had a little bit of traffic, and as he makes his way up through the Schumacher S here, it is against the racing team Astra driver. We will ride on board with him once he makes his way up through VDOL to give you an idea of what it's like to drive one of these Dallara P217 LMP2 machines around, as he runs very wide now, I think trying to get the dirt off the tyres and just trying to settle back down into a rhythm. But as we wait for him to make his way up towards the final corner, we do look a little bit further afield, and I can definitely tell you at the moment it is Turnbull who's the fastest in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, and well, in the LMP AM class it's Walton at the moment, but Vessels is only a tenth of a second off. And do keep in mind as well, if there's any track limit breaches on these laps, we won't know about them until we go to set the grid, but right now we're going to forget about that. Instead we're going to ride on board here with Stefan Vessels. He takes us around for a flying lap. He's making his way across the timeline, charging down towards turn number 1 into the heavy braking zone. There is the hairpin, up in 5th gear here, and as he breaks his way down the gearbox, going all the way down to 1st gear. He's got a bit of traffic ahead of him. This could compromise the lap early on, but wait and see as he makes his way into the Mercedes arena through turn 2, going over the crest and now down out of the corner here, nice and early on the throttle, rolling the car out before coming into turn 3. A very tricky corner here. You need to brake as late as possible and take a very late apex in 1st gear before keeping the car to left and pulling it into the right-hander of 4. And as he exits out the corner, now it's to charge down towards turn number 5. Comes charging down full throttle here and then using the runoff road there as a brake marker, coming down to 3rd gear before heading into turn number 6. A slower corner going all the way down to 1st gear in the LMP2s, normally 2nd gear in the GT3. And as he exits out the corner here, he'll have the acceleration to go past Turnbull as he makes his way down to the Dunlop Kira hairpin, braking down through the gearbox, going all the way down to 1st gear, taking a V-shape apex, so it goes a bit deep, and there's a lot of understeer there. He does have to settle the car, not a happy run through the hairpin, as he now makes his way into the Schumacher S. And completely flat out there, just full commitment, which is what you can do when you put all that downforce on the LMP2 machine. Now making his way in to turn number 10, rolling through the left-hander, we're going into the Bilstein curve at turn number 11, and as he rolls his way through the right-hander, now heading up towards turn number 12 in very short order, completely flat out here through the right-hander at turn number 12, going up through the gearbox, reaching the highest possible speed over the course of the circuit now heading into VDOL, looking for that 50-metre walk, coming down to 3rd gear, charging between the apexes, straight line in the chicane, now into the final corner, turn number 15 or 16, depending on how you treat turn 4, but regardless, he comes out the corner here in 1st gear, and he'll have to go on to another lap. You can see he did go purple, or briefly went purple in sector 4, but it is the case, it's not an ideal lap, and Stefan Vessels has got time to find if he wants to close up to Paul Walton, who has raised the bar in class to a 42.935. But as he makes his way down through turn number 1, it is the case that right now we do see it's one of those situations where Vessels has still got time to find. Well, it's the case that it's a very difficult lap there, and he's got a lot more up the tanker. But meanwhile, we do look here to Stefan Albanese, who has had a bit of a spin there by the looks of things. Now, where is that? That's at turn number 3, I want to say. And as he makes his way out to the right hand there, it is the case that we can see But, well, right now, Stefan Albanese delivering, and, well, we do have a bit of a question with regards to what's happening with regards to our timers for the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class, and that is a very good point with regards to we can't see a good number of drivers, and I do wonder whether we may have a little bit of a limitation of how much we can see here in this replay file. We will keep our eyes on that, ladies and gentlemen, but we did lose Paul Scott moments ago, and, well, we will find out in due order, but I think it might be the case we may be experiencing some technical issues. We'll try and work on those in the background as we do watch here Stefan Albanese making his way up towards turn number 10 as he comes roaring on through. And as he does, it is one of those situations right now where for Albanese, well, currently P3 in the class, we're missing a lot of times on the board. And, well, won't be able to get you those times, ladies and gentlemen, as we see that Lee Horn has just crossed the timeline. And he set a 54.0 running in the Audi R8 as he comes down towards turn number 1 once again. But we are missing a good number of drivers here today. And, well, they're listed as actually entering on circuit, so I do wonder what's happened. But we're still halfway through the qualifying session and half of it to go. As we do see Lee Horn here pressing on as he makes his way down into turn number 3. And he's got a bit of traffic in the form of Darren Doherty here. And that is not going to help him on this next fast lap as he rolls as well now. But as he comes for the right hand of turn number 4 and heading up towards 5, it is the case now as he breaks as well in. Darren Doherty there just holding it on to being on a lap of his own, and that is one of the situations which you don't want in qualifying, where you've got a driver in front of you who has a right to be on a fast lap, and yet as they make their way on round, you'll be thinking to yourself, well, you're the faster driver, the driver in front should let you through. Well, in this case, Lee Horn is let through by Darren Doherty. Darren deciding that he was not on a fast enough lap there and just simply giving way as they make their way through the right hander of turn number 7. But as they do, and they head up towards the Schumacher S, or the Schumacher chicane, as they come through turns 8 and 9. It is the case, and at this point Darren Doherty just following in the footsteps of Lee Horn here, and of course the GT3 Pro driver in the Apex Racing Academy class, with the GT3 AM driver in the Apex Racing Academy class behind. In this case, the AM driver here can do a little bit of studying, get the notepad out, albeit the metaphorical notepad. You don't want to be writing on a notepad in excess of 100 miles an hour going around the Nürburgring circuit. Well, unless it's the case that Darren Doherty's talents extend that far, which I'm not saying they don't, but it is the case right now. Lee Horn getting himself set for another lap, and as he comes on through, I definitely do think we are missing some drivers based on some technical issues at the moment. So we'll get to the end of the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen, and then we will fix those issues with regards to what is the technical issues. If we can, we'll keep you posted on that and see what we can do. Right now, Lee Horn, in fact, crossing the line there and goes fast over 53.699 as he heads down towards turn number 1. And as he comes around now, we see that Stefan Vessels has gone fastest in the LMP2 AM class with a 42.044. So it's the case that Vessels fires back a very fast lap indeed as he comes through turn number 1 there. But Paul Walton now in the best part of 9 tenths behind, but we're still waiting to see what else Paul Walton can deliver as they make their way on around here. We've still got 7.5 minutes to go, and well, speaking of somebody who wants to deliver here, it's the case he's had a bit of bad luck over the course of the rounds he's taken part in so far. Nothing's quite gone his way, although at Suzuka last time out it was the case that Vin Glenn was able to have a much easier experience in terms he wasn't playing with bad luck. It was just the case that in the BMW M4 didn't quite have the pace to take the fight to the Audi R8, particularly in both the sprint race and also latter stages of the feature race. It seemed to fall away towards the end of a given stint, but now we see Vin Glenn here currently P2 in the class. In fact, technically P1, given that Turnbull is a guest driver in this series, so therefore it would be Vin Glenn who would take that effective quote-unquote pole position lap. But as we see him make their way around, we do have that question about Martello and also Gavin Gardner's laps, where they are. If they've set laps, we're not 100% sure, but right now we're staying with Vin Glenn as he makes his way out towards Vidal here, and as he does right now, the BMW M4 driver, of course, on home territory, home soil, if you will, and being a German driver and a German circuit, it's the case that will give him a little bit of a boost, there's no doubt about that. And as he rolls his way through the final corner, he now goes on to a lap, and we ride on board here to give you an idea of what it's like to go around the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecker World Endurance Circuit in a GT3. Then across the timeline down towards turn 1 and into that braking zone, using the 100 metre on his left hand side, and to deal with traffic. He's got quite a few of the next gen racing drivers in front of him, as we see the M4 driver in particular getting a little bit wrong there, impeding off to the right, and that's going to compromise Vin Glenn's line as Vin Glenn has to take evasive action. Well, that's a difficult one there, but he was able to dodge the wayward Audi, and as he rolls his way through turn 3, mounting the car into the apex curve, they're keeping 2 wheels within the white lines, so that way it's within track limits. And as he exits out of turn 4, that's a very slight off track, and he has to abort the lap, as you have to keep 2 wheels in the white lines at turn 4. And here's the case that Vinglen will have to go again in short order. Not a happy lap there for Vinglen as he makes his way on around. And as they head on through, it is the case that we do say hello to Mark Arrowsmith in the YouTube chat. And well, I do believe Mark Arrowsmith is in the lobby here, but we can't quite see him at the moment. So we are definitely having some technical issues here with regards to the replay file we're looking at. Again, we are looking into those whilst also covering things at the moment. But as soon as we do get a fix for it, we will let you know, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, we look to Jochen here, who's making his way up for the Schumacher S right now in his own BMW AM4. And here's the case that since his return after a number of rounds missed due to technical issues, Jochen has really been delivering the results time and time again. Could we potentially see him take to the top step today? I wouldn't say never, for the simple reason that he is a very fast driver in the GT3 and Apex Racing Academy class, and he has shown that pace over the course of the rounds he has participated in. And I do wonder, in some respects, if he'd been able to compete in the full season, whether it could be him also contesting for what's the championship crown within the class, because Evans, Addy and Stock, to be fair, have all been very fast drivers. There's no doubt about that, but it is also the case that Jochen was shown a lot of pace before he had to take the break from the series through no fault of his own. But as he rolls his way out to the final corner here, he'll go on to another lap and ride on board with his flying lap in the BMW M4. And in fact, he sets a personal best of 54.246, and as he makes his way down towards turn 1, look at that 100 metre board on the left hand side, breaking all the way down the gear, which is the first gear, and rolling the car into the drop. For now, pulling the car from the outside to the other outside of the circuit, going into turn 2, flying through a left-hand here, taking a bit of apex curve, which you can do in the BMW M4 before breaking into turn 3. He'll bring the car very late to the apex, goes a little bit wide and gets a bit of snap oversteer, and then rolls the car through the right-hander at turn 4. But as he makes his way out, just keeps you in track limits there. That's the maximum track limit you can exploit. We're heading down towards turn 5 as he makes his way into left-hander here, dropping a gear down to 3rd gear before breaking into 6. Coming down a gear? Not quite, no, he stays in 3rd gear. In fact, we lose him there. Yep, that is definitely a limitation we have with regards to the replay file we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen. We will need to go get that fixed very shortly for you. And I do believe it is the case that we can't quite see everybody on circuit. So we, in fact, will be right back. We're going to look into getting that fixed now, and we'll be back within the next 5 to 10 minutes. My apologies. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Unfortunately, we can't quite get the technical issues resolved for the purposes of qualifying going into what is race number 1, the sprint race. We are working on getting them fixed for the purposes of the feature race. But to explain what's happening, it does seem as though when our drivers' cars get a certain distance from one of the cars in particular out on the circuit, it is the case that we do seem to lose them. So it may be the case that we have quite a limited field in appearance for the purposes of race number 1. It seems as though we've just got a technical issue with the replay file, but if we can get it fixed for the purposes of the feature, we can. A fix is being worked on as soon as possible. But right now we do focus on Matthew Hodges here as he makes his way out of the arena and down towards turn number 5. And as he comes roaring on down, I do think it's the case we may, oh goodness me, and Matthew Hodges losing the rear of the car there. And well, as he has to jump to the pits, in this case we instead look to Maurizio Marconi as he comes roaring on down towards turn number 1, and as he makes his way into the braking zone here, Marconi now having to try and build on where he currently is. He's currently P3 and really has turned things around since the start of the season, where it was the case in the early stage of the season he was looking relatively fast in small bursts, but it was the case that he wasn't quite able to deliver as much as he could, and now he's definitely delivering a lot more. And as he makes his way out of what is turn 4 and down towards 5, it is the case Marconi doing everything he can right now in order to try and continue to build on that momentum from what we've seen earlier on in this final part of the season, particularly at Suzuka, where he picked up that maiden win. And as he makes his way down towards the hairpin right now, it is the case Marconi looking good at this time. As he rolls his way into the right hand here, it is one of those situations as we do lose him, unfortunately. He has gone a bit too far away from our reference car, which we're not 100% sure who our reference car is, but they do seem to be in the pit lane right now, so that's why we're losing drivers on the latter half of the lap. We do look to Matthew Turnbull here, who gets it. Well, in fact, he doesn't get it wrong coming out of the turn number 6, but he has to bail out the lap because he does have an LMP 2 coming on through. But then we do look to from him to Peter Herschel here, who makes his way through the Mercedes arena, and well, right now as he rolls his way through turn number 3, he's currently P4 in the LMP2 Pro class, and he'll be looking to try and improve as much as he possibly can here. He's half a second off of Gaz Williams, who is in turn 2/10 of a second off of Robert De Ceunick, and Chris Daines right now the pole position man in the LMP2 Pro class. Of course, Peter Herschel's teammate in the Vrano Motorsport group as they roll their way on around. And I think we're very shortly going to lose him, unfortunately. Sorry about this, ladies and gents, but we have to work with what we've got. As we see here, Dan Skinner make his way across that timeline, and qualifying is coming to its end very shortly, but we can only get our drivers' laps at the moment as they make their way across that timeline, it would seem. But as they come on through here, Dan Skinner down in P6 as he rolls his way on through. I think this is going to be an aborted lap sooner rather than later. It's not gone very well as he comes from the Mercedes arena and up on that apex curve of turn at number 2. And well, it has gone very, very wrong for Skinner. He's got a lot of traffic to navigate his way on through. But the checkered flag is out, and if anybody is on a flying lap right now, we are going to lose it very shortly, I do believe. As we do see here, it is the case. We've got Skinner making his way through turn number 6, and Matthew Addy just a little bit further up the road from him, but we've just lost Addy. And well, we've also got Sam Holman here making his way through the Mercedes arena, as we've got a couple of drivers coming to the end of their laps, and well, Peter Herschel coming to the end right now, and he's looking at personal best here, and he goes P3 of a 42.266, and well, that gets him a lot closer to the front row. And well, who else out there is on improving lap, I hear you ask? Well, we do have Mark Arrowsmith here making his way to the timeline, and we're very happy to see the VR46, Valentino Rossi 46 inspired Ferrari 488 returning to the grid. And as he makes way across the line, in the end it's going to be, well, we're not 100% sure because we haven't quite got everybody's laps on the board, but right now Arrowsmith looking for a midfield qualifying position there within the class, as we do see Dan Skinner making his way out the back straight. Chris Daines has gone even faster in terms of the overall pole position, the LMP2 Pro pole of a 41.239. Well, Skinner had a bit of a aborted lap early on, and as he comes out of the final corner, what can he do? Well, he's going to pull over to the right immediately. He's not happy with that, and he's decided not to put it across the checker flag. What about your conceit here as he comes to line? Can he improve from his current best? He's able to in the end a 54.031 for the journey. That puts him into the midfield of the GT3 and Apex Racing Academy class, and then we do still have Sam Holman coming around here, and behind him I believe that is Matthew Hodges as they roll their way through the right-hander, and we see here Sam Holman coming to the line. Well, he hasn't been improving so far, and this is not going to be an improved lap there from Sam Holman. And what about there for Matthew Hodges? Well, then Matthew Hodges does not improve either, so I think that is everybody who's going to put in a lap all said and done here in qualifying, which does mean that Chris Daines takes pole position in the LMP 2 class. Me on the GT3 class, it is Matthew Turnbull, the guest driver, who takes pole position here today, unless anybody's on a lap and we don't know about it. But I think we're 2 minutes past the checkered flag coming out, all laps have been accounted for, so that means the pole position will then go to Carmelo Mettello when guest drivers are removed effectively. But well, in the end it was the case. Matthew Turnbull putting in an absolutely brilliant lap of 52.516, subject to that being confirmed of course when we do set the grid. But we now transition our way over to the grid setting procedure, and very shortly we'll take you through that grid. Well, here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, the grid for the sprint race in round number 11 of the PROTO GT3 Championship, as hosted by NXTGEN Racing, brought to you at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. It is Chris Daines who took pole position with 41.854, 2/10 faster than Stefan Wessels, who took pole position for the LMP2 AM class behind the LMP2 Pro class pole sitter. Then Peter Herschel starts off our second row with Gaz Williams alongside him in P4. P5 going to Robert De Ceunick with Paul Walton alongside in P6. A difficult qualifying session for Paul Walton. He's got a lot to do in the sprint race. Paul Scott P7 alongside Jamie Dorey P8. They make up your fourth row with Dan Skinner and Mark Sykes making up row number 10. No, row number 5 I should say, not row number 10, with Mark Sykes in P10. Row number 6, Jim Stanton and Sam Holman. They're the two rivals back out on circuit once again. We look forward to seeing how they get on. And then behind them on row number 7, Adam Delmont, the last of our LMP2 Pro qualifiers. And then we go to our pole position driver in the GT3 class, Matthew Turnbull there. He lines up P14 and he'll be starting off the GT3 class in the separate 5 seconds backfield. We then have Carmelo Mettello, who starts P15, lined up on our 8th row with Vin Glenn alongside. The two rivals there, one from DRS Esport LMS1 and the Deutsche Payment Esports driver, the other, will be going toe-to-toe once again with Maurizio Macconi lined up on 9th row alongside Matthew Hodges in P18. Then Lorenzo Gualtieri starts off P19, our pole sitter for the GT3 AM IMB Racewear class, with Edoardo Francoschin starting P20. Row number 11 made up of Tristan Di Nobrega and Stefan Albanese, and now on row number 12 we have Gavin Gardner and Matt Emmons, with Matt Emmons taking pole position in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class, and then behind them on row number 13 Andrew Holmes and Darren Doherty, followed by Lee Horn and Matthew Addy on row number 14, then Jochen Seeger on row at number 15, P29 with Nigel Stock alongside, Sean Cranley Swash P31 with Mark Harris Smith alongside in P32 on the 16th row, on row number 17 Elwyn Sykes and Davide Favo, and our final row Arjun Kregel and Phil McDougall, I do believe. In fact, Michael Price will be starting at the back, I believe, if he's able to make it to the grid, but we will have to wait and see. But now as our drivers make the way on around, we'll be going racing very shortly, and well, it is the case that once they get to the final corner, it'll be to Chris Daines to get us underway racing once again. Warm-up lap currently in progress, or the partial formation lap, you will, behind the safety car. You can see Chris Daines really up in the pace here behind the safety car, wanting to go racing as soon as possible. And now they make the way to the final corner, and it is the Verano Motorsports Chris Daines who takes us to the green. Lights out and away we go here for race 1 at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. Chris Daines getting a good start here, and Stefan Wessels finding himself on the outside as they come down to turn 1. It's 4 wide already. It's, oh goodness me, and getting it wrong on the brakes. Well, that looked to be one of the Stanton family who got it a bit wrong there by the looks of things, and took a number of drives with it, and Stefan Wessels involved in all of that. Well, Jim Stanton leading now with a very crumpled front end on that car, but immediately inside there goes Dan Skinner as they roll the way for the left hand. In fact, not leading now, I should say. Chris Daines is leading, but right now as they make the way out of the Mercedes arena, Dan Skinner gained a lot of place at the start of this race, and well, I think it is the case that Jim Stanton, who leads the LMP2 AM class, it will be one of those situations whereby he'll know there's going to be a question over that incident at the start, and then maybe a bit of a hefty penalty applied afterwards. But meanwhile, we look from our LMP2s to our GT3s, and we see Matthew Turnbull hold on to the lead as they make the way out of turns 5 and 6, and down towards 7 they go. And the Pure Sims driver here, whilst he may be a guest, he's racing this for serious money, as he makes his way down. When I say serious money, there's no money on the line, but he's treating it seriously as he comes through the turn 7 hairpin here. And we can see Vin Glen behind, keeping him very honest. And Vin Glen, in fact, having a good start and managing to get the jump on Martello and McConey as they make the way for the Schumacherettes for the first time. Now as they head up towards turn at number 10, it is the case here. Will Vin Glen look for a move? He's thinking about it. He doesn't quite go for it. He's not close enough to here as he rolls his way through. And as he heads down towards turn at number 11, it is the case of Vin Glen doing everything he can right now to put pressure on early and break away as they make the way up towards what is turns at 13 and 14 as they come rolling on through. I do have to apologise for the fact we can't cover a number of our classes due to the technical limitations we have here, due to technical issues we haven't been able to resolve. So we'll focus on the classes we can see. It's Phil McDougall there's got it very wrong coming out of the Vidal chicane. I believe as well that is Dan Skinner who's had a bit of a spin. Oh, no, that's not Dan Skinner. That's Paul Walton pointing the wrong way coming into the pits. So there's drama on the opening lap for both of the championship contenders in the LMP2 AM class. But meanwhile, as our drivers make the way across the timeline, we see Phil McDougall here actually soldiering on. And, well, he's going to make his way on the inside there of what is, I believe that's Matt Emmons, as they make the way on to another lap as they come roaring on through. It is the case that right now Phil McDougall doing everything he can to try and recover this race, as meanwhile a bit further up the road Jamie Dorey here trying to put pressure onto the back of Dan Skinner as they head through turns 5 and into 6. And right now the next gen racing driver, after a very tumultuous start for the LMP2 class, where it is the case now Jamie Dorey going hunting after Skinner but falling back a little bit. Meanwhile we look a bit further back into GT3 classes and we can see Vin Glen continuing to try and gain their ground on Turnbull as they roll their way through the right-hander of turn at number 6. And as they do, the Deutsche Payment Esports driver now having to worry about Carmelo Martello, who is inching a little bit closer here. Martello settling in. And remember, Martello here, he can just afford to finish ahead of Matthew Hodges and Gavin Gardner, and he will still be leading the championship going into the final round. Vin Glen does not have an effect on that championship battle in terms of being in direct competition. The only thing Vin Glen will have is taking points off of the three of them, and that's what Martello will be needing to think about. Does he need to finish ahead of Vin Glen to give himself extra security versus Hodges and Gardner? Well, the short answer is yes in the ideal world, but when it comes down to it, if he wants to bank points, he may not need to make the pass. But as he comes out of turn number 11, running a bit wide there and up onto the gravel, easy to do, and it costs you a bit of a run down here through turn number 12 and up towards the Vidal chicane of 13 and 14. And as he heads into the braking zone here, braking that 50-metre board with some fuel in the car now. Of course, the car will feel a bit heavier under braking. That rear will slide around in the RDR8 as he comes into the final corner here. You can see Vin Glen really hounding the back of Turnbull, but Turnbull not giving in at all as they make the way across that timeline and on to another lap. As they come roaring on through here, you can see making his way past Stefan Vessels, who's trying to get himself back into the race in the LMP2 AM class after being collected in that turn 1 collision. Multiple drivers been involved there. A bit further back we can see Matthew Hodges here. He's trying to hunt his way back up to McConey and Martello, who have got between them and him Tristan Dino Brega, who's currently leading in the GT3 AM IMB Raceway class as they make their way into the Mercedes arena once again. And as they roll the way on through, it is a situation right now where Matthew Hodges, I think, just trying to settle the car down, as behind him you've got Matt Evans there leading in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class, and Lee Horn behind him. Nigel Stock, meanwhile, is 4.5 seconds behind Matt Evans. And right now the Mercedes driver, well, this may be one of the home circuits for Mercedes, but it is the case that Nigel Stock from Crystal Sport Apex Tracks not in a happy place right now with regards to that pace. It would seem just a bit off of the ball with regards to Matt Evans, who seems to just have that pace advantage as they make the way down towards the Dunlop Kira hairpin. As they come roaring on down, it is a situation right now whereby Nigel Stock, I think, will be looking at damage limitation in this race if he can't close up within the next 5 minutes, because 5 minutes is gone, still 10 minutes to go in this sprint race, and right now the Englishman definitely has got some ground to close up as they make the way through the latter half of the lap. As we look a little bit further up, we do look to Lee Horn here, who finds his way past Matt Evans. In fact, Evans there just letting Lee Horn go, recognising he doesn't need to battle with his fellow next-gen racing drivers. They're in different classes, and therefore playing the smart card there, which is not to fight a driver in a class that you're not competing in. As they make their way through the next couple of corners, it is the case that Evans will now look to press on. As we see that, I believe that's Darren Doherty, who is a lap down already, unless I'm mistaken. He's been involved in an early collision by the looks of things. So Darren Doherty out of sequence as they make the way on through. As they do, we do look back to that battle between Turnbull and Vin Glen here as they head across that timeline and go on to another lap. You see Turnbull weaving on the straight. They're trying to break the toe with a little bit of weave side to side. And as they come down to the braking zone for turn 1 here, well, that weaving hasn't really gained Turnbull anything. If anything, it's actually cost him a little bit. The only thing I can think it's gained him is a little bit of tyre temperature, which may help him in the long run. But as they roll their way through turn 2, you see Carmelo Mettello's actually fallen back slightly from Vin Glen, and that's McConey who is closing up. Now, the two teammates, of course, will not want to hurt one another, but it does seem as though Maurizio McConey feeling a lot more comfortable at this stage in the season. For the sister outfit from DRS Esport LMS, he's part of Team 2, whereas it's the case Martello's part of Team 1. But it is right now looking as though McConey looking very, very comfortable in that Audi R8 and really starting to come alive, which is a little bit of a shock to the senses, it should be said. But at the same time, sometimes you do come along late in the season, sometimes you come strong early in the season, and right now McConey is definitely a late bloomer here as he makes his way through the right-hander of turn number 7. As he comes on through and now heads his way up the hill to turn number 10. It is the case that he comes charging on through. We do have our leaders, our overall leaders, and Chris Daines there coming across the timeline to go on to another lap. And well, in the LMP2 class, I can tell you, all the carnage into the first quarter, Chris Daines has been given a huge amount of breathing room, as we do see the Renault Motorsports driver here making his way through the Mercedes arena, and right now with a 4-second advantage over second place man and teammate Peter Herschel, who are putting a very good qualifying lap at the end of quite a fast lap. And now the Renault Motorsport driver is continuing to push on here, trying to make it a Renault Motorsport 1-2, which they'd love to do within the class as they head down towards what is turns at 5 and 6. In fact, Daines already through turn number 6 almost as Herschel goes into turn number 5. But as they come roaring on through, we look to the lead. Well, we're trying to understand who is the leader of the LMP2 AM class at the moment. We believe our timing screen is correct, and it is Sam Holman as he locks up the brakes there into turn number 6. And Sam Holman, Hollerton Racing's driver here, looking very good after having to miss Suzuka. It is the case he's back on form today, and whilst a bit of luck has played its part in terms of not being involved in that first corner pile-up, it is the case that at the same time Holman was able to dodge it and put in the pace, and now he's 3.2 seconds clear of Mark Sykes behind here. Remember, Mark Sykes racing in the class, he can't pick up any points because he's made a very late switch in the season, but it is the case he is trying to chase down Holman here and looking quite firm and actually matching Holman in terms of pace right now, albeit by 1 or 2 attempts, but looking good as Mark Sykes, and he's definitely looking on course for that podium at the rate he's going. But keep in mind Stefan Vessels, who right now MP3 as Paul Walton comes on through, and we do lose what is there Vessels for a brief moment. We do look to Stefan Albanese now, but just keep an eye on Vessels. He may be getting close to Mark Sykes later on in this race, particularly with Paul Walton having to come into the pit. But right now we do look to Stefan Albanese here, currently running P6 in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. We do believe, again, these time screens are not 100% accurate, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, due to technical limitations. We do apologise for that. It's the case of technical issue just keeps rearing its ugly head. But right now, as he makes his way through the corner, Stefan Albanese trying to get a move on here, and he's got Edoardo Francoschin trying to close up behind. They're definitely not competing for the lead of this class right now as they make their way through the Schumacher S. It is the case that the lead of the class at the moment is Turnbull ahead of Vin Glen. But as they make their way through the left-hander here of turn number 10 and into 11, we see Phil McDougall trying to find his way on through here. McDougall really caught up in the situation and just trying to give himself some space as they make their way down. And in fact, Phil McDougall finds his way on through, and Albanese not costed too much time in at the end when it's all said and done. But meanwhile, whilst they're rolling on through, we do look here, well, we're trying to find another driver who's actually out on circuit at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of who we can see. Again, these technical issues are really holding us back a little bit here, but what we can do is look to Matthew Addy here, who are right now chasing after Sean Cranley Swash. And in terms of position, I do believe this is a battle for P6 in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class as they make their way down into turn number 1. They roll their way on through the corner, and right now Matthew Addy already closing up to the back of Cranley Swash as they head into the Mercedes arena. And these two drivers, of course, in equal machinery. And, well, as we said earlier, Matthew Addy been looking very fast when he's on point in that Lamborghini, but the car just seems to have a mind of its own. Sometimes we see there the rear just stepping out in that direction change from the exit of turn number 3 going into turn number 4. And as they make the way up towards turn number 5 right now, Addy really having to put that pressure on as we look from the gearbox here of Sean Cranley Swash. See Addy getting incredibly close on the braking to turn 6 here as they roll their way out of the corner. as they come charging on down, heading up towards now what is turn number 7. It is the case that Cranny Swash getting the better exits out the corner, Addy getting the stronger runs into the corner, so you can see how it's playing out between the two of them as they make their way now up the hill and in towards the Schumacher S here. It's going to be full of commitment as they come rolling through. Sean Cranny Swash able to break away once again, just being a bit more comfortable here as they now head up towards turn number 10. Into the braking zone they go. And right now doing everything he needs to, the Renault Motorsport driver, to hold on to the position as he heads his way down through turn at number 11, heading up towards 12, 13 and 14 in short order. But as he comes roaring on through, it is the case. We look a little bit further back and we can see Albanese there and also Eduardo Frankishin. Frankishin still tucked in behind as they make their way up towards the Vidal chicane. And Albanese right now having to keep his teammates at bay, albeit I do believe Frankishin from DRS Esports LMS1, so they are in rival sister teams, if you will, so they are battling for a little bit of pride on the line and points to their respective team in the team's championship, but they won't want to hold one another up too much as Frankishin's getting very close now to the back of Albanese as they make their way down the start finish straight, albeit he's not looking for the move yet. As we can see there, we do have what is Lorenzo Gualtieri, who is parked on the inside there and letting these drivers on through. But as they roll their way down into turn 1, no change between the two of them as they make their way into the Mercedes arena. And as they come charging on through, it is the case that we do have Lorenzo Gualtieri here. And what we can see right now, Gualtieri, the Racing Team Manager orange driver, looking very comfortable at the moment. I do believe he is right now chasing for the lead of the class, unless I'm very much mistaken. That is the case. He's involved in a little bit of an earlier bash, so he's not leading at the moment, although the screen will say he's leading there. But again, we are trying to rectify those technical issues with regards to our timing tower and also the visibility of other drivers. But right now, Gualtieri, I do believe, is running in the region of about, I want to say, P2 or P3 within the GT3 and IMB Raceware class. I believe it is Tristan Di Nobrega who is currently leading, albeit we can't see Di Nobrega out on circuit. As we do say hello to Tristan Di Nobrega and Paul Scott in the YouTube chat. Also Jim Stanton clarifying there with regards to the turn 1 carnage that he missed his braking point, trying to gain vision around Sam Holman. That's very unfortunate, Jim, but at the same time, I don't think anyone will judge you for it. These things that do happen in sim racing and indeed in real world racing. But here we look to Jochen Siegert here, and as they make their way out of that turn number 10, also turn number 11 and up towards the Vidal chicane, it is the case Jochen Siegert right now trying to keep Sean Cranny Swash at bay. And in fact, Cranny Swash has broken away from Matthew Addy, and that is the case. He is making his charge for P3 in the class as they roll the way through Vidal, and as they come roaring on through, you can see here Cranny Swash trying to look his way out the inside, but not able to at this time. And for those wondering, just again, we had a couple of questions, including Tristan Di Nobrega there in the YouTube chat. Here's the case, we're losing a lot of drivers on the circuit at the moment. It's not because they're out of the race necessarily, but due to a technical issue with the replay file, we can only see drivers which are within a certain distance of a particular driver out of the circuit right now, and then all of our timing towers and timing statistics are completely scuppered. So that's why it will say certain drivers are in the lead when we know they're not in the lead, or it is the case they're likely not to be in the lead because of how the race has gone so far. So we do apologise for that. We are trying to work on a fix. With 1 minute to go in this sprint race here, and Sean Cranny Swash losing out from the Mercedes arena. You'd think the mid-engine rear-wheel drive Lamborghini would be the stronger of the two cars through the arena, but in fact it's the case that you can see it looking the better of the two drivers through the arena as they roll the way through turns 5 and 6. And right now it looks as though the German here looking very comfortable on home soil as he makes his way out of 6 on what for him will be, I do believe, the last lap. Indeed, Chris Daines is ahead and he's on his final lap right now. So as they make their way into the turn 7 hairpin, you can see it goes very deep. He's able to get on the power comfortably, and that BMW very strong in the acceleration zones and on the straights compared to Lamborghini as they make their way through the Schumacher S. But as they come and charge on through and up the hill this time, it is the case they come roaring on through, and well, no change at the moment. You can see in fact Matthew Addy getting a bit closer now. In fact, Cranny Swash looking for the move, out, breaks himself there, coming into turn number 10, and now will it be the case as Addy's very close, but he has to back off through the corner apex. Well, we do have to cut from them to Chris Daines as he makes his way through Vidal here. It's the case after a dramatic opening lap, he's been left in the clear, and as he makes his way out of the final corner, the checker flag will wait him once again, and he will take the win in the LMP PRO class here in the sprint at the Nürburgring. Chris Daines is your winner ahead of Peter Herschel, who will come through to make it a Renault Motorsport 1-2 as they come to the timing line. And as he crosses the line here, it will then be Sam Holman who comes out the final corner, and we believe will be taking the win in the LMP2 AM class. Yet we can confirm he's taken the win in the class as he crossed the line for Hollerton Racing. That'll be a surprise, but a welcome one for him. And then meanwhile, in the GT3 classes, well, I do believe Matthew Turnbull right now, we can't actually see him out on circuit, unfortunately, but he is leading in the class at this time. It's not Matthew Hodges who's leading, and well, I think Matthew Turnbull, who's not visible, has actually come through to take the win. But when you subtract guest drivers, that will mean that Vin Glenn is your winner in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, ahead of, in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class, what was Matt Emmons in the end, taking a critical win, albeit we didn't get to see him cross the timeline, again due to these technical issues which are plaguing us. And then it is the case in the GT3 AM IMB Racewear class, it is one Tristan Di Nürburgring who's taken the win, but we have not been able to see him on circuit. In fact, here we can see him, and in fact he's the only driver, he's making his way around right now, he's the only GT3 AM IMB Racewear driver who has yet to cross the finish line and take the checkered flag. So it is a little bit of confusion here, ladies and gentlemen, but as he makes his way around right now, he is still racing, albeit everybody else in his class has finished their race. And as he heads on through to take the last couple of corners here, it is looking very good for Tristan Di Nürburgring. And in terms of that championship battle between himself and Lorenzo Gaultier from Racing Team Astra Orange, the Racing Team Astra Blue driver doing exactly what he needs to do in order to be able to keep that championship lead alive as he makes his way across that timeline and takes the win in the end in a very brilliant form there, and indeed picking up the fastest lap as well as he crosses that timeline. Well, that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for the sprint race. And now we do have our results, albeit these may be not 100% accurate. We will go with them and see what the results will show us. So after 15 minutes of racing here in race number 1 at the Nürburgring, it is the case in the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. Chris Daines in the end taking the win for Verano Motorsport overall and in the LMP2 Pro class ahead of Peter Herschel at P2, and then Dan Skinner completing the overall podium and the LMP2 Pro podium as well. We can see Sam Holman there taking the win in the LMP2 AM class, his maiden win in the series, unless I'm mistaken. He'll be very pleased with that, with Mark Sykes coming home on the second step of the LMP2 AM class podium. Adam Delmont at P6, Gareth Williams at P7, Jim Stanton P8, Paul Scott P9, and Phil McDougall completing your overall top 10. And then Matthew Turnbull taking the overall win in the GT3 class there at P12. And then as we look to the individual classes, we start off, of course, with the LMP2 Pro class. We can see here it's the case that Chris Daines taking that win by 11.4 seconds ahead of Peter Herschel. It's a Verano Motorsport 1-2 in the LMP2 Pro class. And then Dan Skinner rounding off the podium there in P3, where it's the case in the end where it was a good race for Dan Skinner despite the start and the difficulties there. The Excite Racing driver beating his teammate of Adam Delmont to the podium. Gaz Williams, Phil McDougall, then Jamie Dorey and Robert De Ceunick completing at the standings. Then after them in the LMP2 AM class, it is the case that we do have Sam Holman taking the win by 4 seconds ahead of Mark Sykes, with Jim Stanton in at P3, Paul Scott P4, Paul Walton P5 completing the top 5, and then Stefan Vessels in the end finishing P6 in a difficult day for Vessels once again in the sprint race, and then Michael Price at P7. And as we come into the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, in this case, Matthew Turnbull taking that win in the end, but of course the win will go to our driver who is registered in what is the championship standings. So it'll be Vin Glenn who will take the win in terms of points, but Matthew Turnbull on the top step ahead of Vin Glenn. Vin Glenn having a brilliant run, particularly at the start, to get ahead of Carmelo Metella and hold on to that advantage. Carmelo Metella complete the podium, and it's Maurizio Marconi and Matthew Hodges making up the top 5 ahead of Lee Horn, Andrew Holmes, Gavin Gardner, Stefan Albanese, and Eduardo Francoschim. And in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class, it is the case that after 15 minutes of racing, Matt Emmons taking the win ahead of Nigel Stock and Jochen Siegert, who makes up the final step of the podium. Sean Cranny-Swash P4 ahead of Matthew Addy and Darren Dottie, the last star drivers in that class. And in the GT3 AM IMB Racewear class, the final of our classes here today, Tristan Di Nürburgring taking that win ahead of Lorenzo Gaultieri, with Davide Favo completing the podium, and then Mark Arrowsmith, Elwin Sykes and Arjen Kregel completing the class results. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, was the sprint race here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit in round 11 of the NXTGEN Racing PROTO GT3 Championship. We'll be back as soon as we possibly can. We'll aim to be back by 9 o'clock for the build-up to the feature race, the 60-minute race, which is the second of our 2 races tonight. We are going to try and fix those technical issues, however, but we'll be back as soon as possible for more racing action and indeed plenty of racing to come. There's no doubt about that. You won't want to miss it. We'll be back soon. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Apologies for the delay in returning to the race in action. It is the case that we had to work behind the scenes to resolve the technical issues with regards to being able to see our drives out on the circuit with the replay files provided. But we've been able to source an alternative file for the feature race, and we have confirmed that we can see the majority, if not all, of our drivers. So we should be able to keep a closer eye on the race in action for you, as we do look right now to the build-up to race number 2. And in fact, the final warm-up session has just concluded for our drivers, and we are heading straight into the gridding process. Now, of course, given the fact the grid will be set as a reverse grid based on the standings or the finishing positions from the sprint race, we'll have to wait until all of our drivers have taken to the grid before we can walk you down through the grid, or at least give you an indication. But right now it is the case that a number of drivers will be thinking about how they can have a much better race compared to how their sprint race went here at the Nürburgring. None more so than Paul Walton will be starting at the front of what is the LMP2 and, well, no, he's not starting at the front, my apologies, but he'll be starting in the midfield bit, given how things proceeded, and also Stefan Vessels in particular, who are having a disastrous day. And in fact, he won't be taken to the circuit, if I've just remembered correctly. In fact, it was the case that he was only able to make the sprint, so Paul Walton given a golden opportunity here to make amends for a difficult race number 1 and get even more points on the board in race number 2 at Vessels' expense. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, it is the case that Matt Emmons, after a dominant run in the sprint race, now with the case of the NXTGEN Racing with Sam Casey's UK driver, he will need to try and make it another great result. Can he pull off a potential Grand Slam and get all the points today versus Nigel Stock? We'll have to wait and see, as a line-up separated by a row. Nigel Stock, of course, starting ahead of Matt Emmons there, but we now have our grid making their way as they make their way down towards what is, oh goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologise, we seem to have lost our drivers once again. The replay issues are coming back to haunt us briefly, and there they go, they have been resolved again. It is going to be one of those nights, unfortunately, where we are going to have technical issues across the board. I do apologise for this. We will make sure those do not happen in the season finale. Well, that'll be coming to you live, but it is the case that we have been hit with some technical issues tonight, and it will be to Jamie Dorey to take us away to the green for 60 minutes of racing in race number 2. It's lights out and away we go here. Jamie Dorey getting a reasonable start, but Phil McDougall trying to go around the outside all the way down to turn 1. The outside line has proven treacherous so far, but as they go on the brakes here, Phil McDougall staying in there with Jamie Dorey on his inside, and in the end Dorey gets the nose ahead and is able to outrun him into the apex of 2. Behind Dan Skinner battling with Gaz Williams here as they make their way through turn 2 and up towards 3 they go, but as they do, oh goodness me, and that's Adam Delmont spinning across the circuit there. I'm not sure what's happened, but Gaz Williams been collecting that, and Robert De Ceunick as well. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, Eduardo Francescini started at the front. The GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class driver here holding on to lead as Gavin Gardner pursues him hot on his heels here as they make their way out of the arena, but we've got more kicking on the rear of the pitch. Now a couple of drivers out of sync. Maurizio Macconi here looking at Stefan Albanese and Matthew Hodges as Hodges goes up the inside into turn number 5, and behind Matthew Turnbull here, our winner in race number 1, is now trying to find his way past Commander Martello, but Martello holds it inside through 6 and holds the position as they come charging down towards the hairpin. You can see Vin Glenn there, look at the back of the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class. He's trying to come through a Turnbull. Turnbull's up the inside of Martello. It's very close, but Martello gives him the space here, and Martello knows that he doesn't need to battle with Turnbull to get the points as they make the way up towards the Schumacher S. In the case, side by side they go. You don't go too wide into turn 8, and Turnbull in the end backs out there at the last minute, and now they come charging up towards turn number 10. As they do, Matthew Addy behind there, getting a good start. He's 7 attempts clear of Darren Doherty in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class as they roar their way through 10 and into 11. And as they come roaring on through at this point, we can see, meanwhile, it's the case that Matt Evans here, already battling with Nigel Stock and getting the run, or does he, as they come out of turn number 11, which case he thought he had the run, but the Mercedes driver here in the car with the greater power plant as they come charging up towards Vito. You can see, meanwhile, coming from the right of their picture, that there is Adam Delmont siphoning his way on through, and Matt Evans now having to deal with the situation he's got ahead of him, as I think Nigel Stock's got it very wrong. And as Evans goes into the final corner here, Nigel Stock having missed the Vidal chicane hairpin, you see some of the dust kicking up on the side of that Mercedes as they come on out. Now it is the case that Evans is able to get ahead, and Nigel Stock having a very difficult day as Lorenzo Gualtieri here covers off Mark Aerosmith and Gutierrez in that disastrous race number 1. He needs to stay ahead of Aaron Smith and Tristan Di Nobrega if he wants to take the win here, albeit Di Nobrega is listed as a lap down right now, and now I'm not sure if that's accurate unless he started from the pit lane, but it is the case that right now Lorenzo Gutierrez is leading in that GT3 and IB Raceway class, and he needs this win to keep his championship contention hopes alive, or at least firmly alive. Oh, good spin, that's Darren Doherty who's gone for a spin on the apex of turn 3. Nigel Stock has to take evasive action, and Darren Doherty has jumped to the pits unless I'm mistaken. Yes, he has, and Nigel Stock right now coming out of turn number 4, and well, Nigel Stock's day is going from good to bad to disastrous in short order, although it hasn't got quite disastrous yet, and he'll be hoping it doesn't end up that way at any point soon. But meanwhile, we look from Nigel Stock to Andrew Holmes running in what is P3 here in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. The next gen racing driver in the BMW M4 chasing after Gavin Gardner in front of him, and as we ride on board the gearbox here at Gavin Gardner, it is the case Andrew Holmes was battling with Gardner in the sprint race as they make their way up towards turn number 10. Right now it's Ferrari versus BMW. We're on board with the Ferrari, the BMW looking menacing in the rear view mirror, and indeed we're getting a face for that BMW M4 grille. Some like it, some don't, as they make their way out to turn number 11, and as they come charging down up towards Vidal, going through 12 on the way. It is the case you can see the Ferrari getting a better exit out of turn number 11, and now that is Adam Delmont trying to cut his way between everybody as they make their way into the Vidal chicane. Gardner here cuts off Delmont quite smartly, I think, as meanwhile is a bit further back, but it is the case we can see there Matthew Hodges coming on through, and as they roll the way through, Andrew Holmes losing 2 places to the price of 1 due to Delmont getting in the way, he would feel, and as they come out of the final corner here, the GT3 class is absolutely buzzing alive as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once again. We're only 4 minutes in, and we can see McConey blocking off Holmes here, but Holmes is going to have his nose on the inside as they come down into 1, but it's a very tight apex, and McConey can squeeze him. He doesn't over squeeze him, but in the end he does enough, and now it's the case of Carmelo Mettello battling with Lee Horn here. Lee Horn on the outside in the Audi R8 with Mettello on the inside, the Audi R8 being a very popular car if it can be mastered, and as they roll their way through turn number 3 into 4, you can see Lee Horn's trying to go outside to inside on cutback, but it's not going to work out. Martello gains another place, but he runs very wide there, and I think that could be a potential slowdown if he does that too often as he makes his way out towards turn number 5. Now as they make the way through, we can see meanwhile it's the case McConey, they're going around the outside of Matthew Hodges and gaining another place as they roll their way out turn number 6. That's on the outside of turns, well, that was the outside to inside from 5 into 6, and Hodges there had no way of defending it, but you can see meanwhile Matthew Turnbull here being squeezed on the inside by Stefan Albanese. Well, if you want somebody who knows how to defend and make a car as wide as humanly possible and then some, Stefan Albanese is the one to do it. Matthew Turnbull, the Pure Sims driver here, will now have a huge task in his hands, which is to find his way past the Italian in front of him. As right now Albanese really going defensive, but Turnbull gets him to cover the outside. As they go into turn 10, he snaps on the front there. It's the case of a bit of snap understeer, and in the end Albanese loses out. Turnbull just puts in enough pressure onto Albanese to get him to make a mistake, and Turnbull finds his way past, but he's got Vin Glenn following through with him as they make their way now up towards Vidal once again. As they come charging on through and heading up towards the very tricky chicane, it is the case just in front. Lee Horn here losing ground, as I do believe we've got a couple of drivers that are just now settling into a rhythm ahead of them, albeit the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class very close. As meanwhile I'm hearing that Sean Cranley Swash has had a major off track. Oh goodness me, where has Cranley Swash gone? Well, he's decided there is the case, he's gone straight on, I think, or got it very wrong coming off of Vidal, and he's waiting for everybody to return. I don't see any damage on that Lamborghini. I think he's just straight lined beyond the curbing, and now he's got it all to do after he was running in P3 in the GT3 and Apex Racing Academy class. It has gone so wrong, and now the Verano Motorsport driver has to do it all again. Well, speaking of a driver who's battling his way on up here, and we've had it rectified. In fact, there it's Tristan Di Nobrega. He wasn't a lap down, and he is in fact on the lead lap, much like his peers. He's battling with Mark Arrowsmith here through the Mercedes arena. Up the inside he goes, and as they roll the way on through there, Arrowsmith losing the rear of the car slightly, just trying to get that direction change through and to settle the rear of the Ferrari down. Tristan Di Nobrega gains another position. He's up to P2, chasing after Lorenzo Gutierrez now, but will he be able to close down the class leader and put this championship rivalry to bed, or at least as much as he can before the final round? I think Gutierrez right now 2.2 seconds clear. It's possible, but we'll have to wait and see. But as they make the way on through the corners here, we do look back up towards our leaders, and that is, oh, we just lost our leader very briefly there. And, well, I think, again, we are just being hit with that slight technical issue, ladies and gentlemen, around what is the replay file here. So we are just staying with the racing action where we can at the moment. And Phil McDougall up the inside there of Mark Sykes. A change of overall position, but no change of class position, as Mark Sykes then not battling for position 9. He doesn't need to, as they roll their way through turns 1 and 2, and down into 3 they go. But as they do, we look to Peter Herschel here, who right now is chasing after his teammate Chris Daines. And well, behind him, that is Paul Walton, who is leading the LMP2 AM class as they make their way through turns 5 and 6, and down towards 7 they go. And as they make the way on down here, Paul Walton looking good so far in terms of keeping clear. Paul Scott behind him there by 2.2 seconds as they make their way through turn 7 and up towards the Schumacher crest they go. But as they head on up the hill, it's the case making their way up through the Mercedes Arena right now, our GT3s, and it's Eduardo Francoschin who continues to lead here as he makes his way down towards turn 3. But behind him, Gavin Gardner, who has still got the pressure on Maurizio Marconi, who is right there with him as we ride on board with the Italian here, who gets a much better run through the Mercedes Arena, but takes a little bit of track limits with him as they make their way down towards turn number 5. And as they come charging down into the braking zone, you can see they're closing up under braking versus Gardner, and very close there as they head through turn number 6. And Marconi just more comfortable under trail braking compared to the Ferrari driver in front. Now, will he be able to go for the lunge down to the hairpin? He's close enough to consider it, but Gardner covers it off briefly, and it's a case of waiting once more as they roll the way through the right-hander and now heading up the hill. You can see Marconi so close here as they head up the hill through the Schumacher crest they go, and as he bounces the throttle to keep the rear planted but not overextend the car and understeer off, it is the case charging up the hill into turn number 10, into the braking zone they go. Marconi looks for it there. That was very close and almost, I think, unsettling himself, and that just goes to show you how much pace he thinks he's got in the car versus Gardner. But the thing is, catching is one thing, passing is another thing, and he's got to find a way to get through without making contact, which I'm sure he'll be planning, but that was very close. As meanwhile, just a bit further back here, Vin Glenn, and found his way past Lee Horn and Carmelo Martello, is now chasing after Turnbull still, and Turnbull really has been the driver to show the pace in the GT3 classes today. There's a guess, but to be fair, at the same time, the Pure Sims driver here, he may be a guess, but he's going racing, as we said earlier, and Vin Glenn is only too happy to follow behind him and use him really as a pace car right now, because Vin Glenn is showing a turn of pace here as they make the way down the start-finish straight. And as they come rolling on down in towards turn number 1, this time around it is the case. We do have the battle from what is a P3 in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class all the way back to P7, separated by only 1.5 seconds, all said and done. Shows you how close these drivers are running against one another as they make their way through the Mercedes Arena. But you can see their Turnbull getting very close as Andrew Holmes loses the rear slightly through turn 3 into 4. And now the Pure Sims driver will be looking for the move as they make the way down towards turn number 5. It's the case Holmes covers him off. Turnbull has to wait here, and Turnbull's going to look for that move down towards the hairpin. I think he'll look to get a good run here. He'll take a nice late apex. He'll go deep intention into the corner. Oh, goodness, he's very close as they make the way on out. He's been able to get himself the space on the outside. Andrew Holmes covers him off on the inside. It's going to be a battle on the brakes here. Lamborghini going around the outside versus BMW on the inside. It's still almost door to door, but they give one other the space. But Turnbull's now got the momentum out of the corner as they head up the hill. Now he's going to have his nose in there. He's not going to give in. He does not want to give Holmes the right to make it too wide for the Schumacher crest. And Turnbull there with a very brave move. And now Vin Glenn's trying to come through as well with him being out of position. And Vin Glenn gains the place. He's using Turnbull literally as a bull in terms of charging his way through. Indeed, Turnbull like a bull to a matador right now, coming through that field. And Vin Glenn just following in his wake here. And as they make the way through, great racing between the drivers. And now they try and break the way up towards Wes Matthew Hodges, who is only the best part of 1.5 seconds clear as they head up towards turn number 15. They go through Vidal, and I wonder how long it'll be before we see more battling kick off. And speaking of battling, Maurizio Marconi still right behind Gavin Gardner as they make their way across that timeline. Only 1/6 of this race complete, just over 10 minutes clear. We've still got just shy of 50 minutes to go. Plenty of racing action on the agenda here, and our drivers are not showing any signs of calming it down. Marconi looks up the inside. He's going for that little lunge of the nose in towards Gardner. It's a very dangerous move to make if you get it wrong, for the simple reason you'll collect the driver in front. McGahn there respecting and seeing McConey coming, and McConey in return not overextending it on the brakes. They're just getting his nose in on that apex and therefore making it hard for Garner to turn on in as they roll their way through and out of the Mercedes arena. You can see McConey taking a huge amount of runoff area there. Well, it is the case he's going to tuck back in. That'll be a track limits and whatnot. But as they make their way down to turn number 5, it is the case right now. McConey definitely really trying to get his teeth into that P2 position. So I think it's Garner's just got enough at the moment, but I wonder how long it'll be before Gavin Garner finds a way to either upset the strategy. Alternatively, McConey finds a way just to come blitzing on through. Well, as they make their way through the hairpin this time, you can see McConey not close enough to go up the inside, but I think he's waiting. I think he's waiting for the run up to turn 10. He's going to try and get it on the brakes here as they come through the Schumachers, because he's literally there right on the rear of the Ferrari. And now as they make their way up towards the left-hander, Gardner knows he's coming. He covers off the middle. McConey now tucks back in. They wait once again as they head up towards Vidal now. It'll be the case. Can he get the move into the medium speed chicane? Well, I'm going to put my money on McConey. He's going to have a really good chance here. He's right there in the slipstream. Whilst he doesn't have the straight line speed of the Ferrari, he will have the toe, and that'll make up for it as they make their way through 12. Now as they head up into the braking zone here, McConey on the outside, Gardner on the inside. He backs out. He's trying to get Gardner to outbrake himself into Vidal, but no such thing. Gardner knows exactly where to place that Ferrari as he tucks the inside into the final corner. And as they roll the way on through and out, it is the case. Gavin Gardner showing every bit of defensive nuance here as they make the way across the timing line and now head down towards turn 1. This is giving Eduardo Francescini the opportunity to break away. Gardner now pinned to the inside line as they make the way into the braking zone here for the corner, and as they roll their way on through, it is the case. McConey looking for that cutback as they head into turn number 2, but McConey now being made to go round the outside as they roll their way down into 3 through the second half of the Mercedes arena. They go. McConey loses the rear there. I don't think there was any contact, and it's the case just overturning the car into braking, and Gavin Gardner in the end, well, he's going to make it work, and it was through defending and making McConey overdo it on the car. And I think Gardner right now will be grinning slightly to himself and thinking, I knew that was coming. And well, Gavin Gardner definitely showing his defensive strengths there, and now he's trying to hold on to that P2, which is critical for him to chase after Hodges and Martello in the championship with the final round next week. But as he makes his way down to the hairpin, he's still got a long way to go, but definitely some great defending being demonstrated here. And now McConey's got it all to do, as meanwhile Lee Horn, he's trying to chase after Andrew Holmes here, and Lee Horn looking the faster of the 2 next-gen racing drivers as they make their way up the hill. They've got Carmelo Martello right behind them. And Martello really struggling today at the Nürburgring. It must be said, he's just not there on the pace compared to what we saw at Suzuka. And right now, I think this is more about damage limitation, whereas Lee Horn really going racing today versus Holmes. They make their way out of 10 into 11. And as they come roaring on through the right-hander of 11, they now make their way up towards Vito. But you can see Andrew Holmes really offline there, taking a bit of gravel as he came out of turn number 11. And now that's going to blunt his momentum up towards Vito. But that BMW is so strong compared to the Audi on the straight, he doesn't have to worry about it by comparison as they head on through. But as they come charged on through now, we look to there from them to our LMPs. And in particular, we see Sam Holman here up the inside of Mark Sykes of P3 in the LMP2 AM class. Going to be side by side here, caught in the GT3 traffic. And as they do, you can see there, oh goodness me, and Mark Sykes having to back off massively as Holman there comes on through, pinning Sykes behind the GT3s. And Phil McDougall comes through with him. And Sam Holman right now really going racing. And really, after that win in race number 1, I think he feels as though he can be on that podium and chase after Paul Scott, albeit Paul Walton as well is not too far away, and Holman is 11.1 seconds behind Paul Scott right now. Could we potentially see back-to-back wins for Sam Holman? Now that would be something, but we'll have to wait and find out in due course here. Well, of course, of the race complete, we've still got plenty to go. Meanwhile, speaking of plenty to go, we can see Tristan Dino Brega lurking for the move on Mark Arrowsmith, as Arrowsmith going quite slowly there through the arena, out of sorts of Tristan Dino Brega trying to send the move as we ride on board with the Ferrari driver here, the 488 driver, as he makes his way into the braking zone for turn 5. Got a bit of brake dust being kicked up there. I think that's Matthew Addy who kicked up some brake dust ahead. Arrowsmith having to defend here as they roll away for the right hand. They've got Jochen Siegert behind, who's in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy AM class, not the IMB Raceware AM class, which Dino Brega and also Arrowsmith are in. So as they make their way down to the braking zone for turn number 7, I think Jochen Siegert's got to be very tactical how he gets involved in this battle. You can see there on the television screen in the middle of Tristan Dino Brega's console, that's his rear view mirror effectively, as they make their way through turn 7 and 8. And Dino Brigger all over the back of Aerosmith. Now where will Aerosmith put the car? He'll put it on the inside. He disappears briefly. Hopefully he does reappear. This is going to get very sketchy under braking. And Dino Brigger, they're committed as they make the way through the corner. I think Jochen Seeger's had a slight mistake with Skinner coming on through. The LMP2 driver comes on from the right. You'll see him come from the right side of your picture very quickly there as they make the way through turn number 12. And Tristan Dino Brigger definitely very brave as they make the way up towards the Vidal chicane to try and go for the move around a disappearing Mark Aerosmith. Gets it wrong, clips the curve. Oh, goodness me, it's very close. And Aerosmith gets her on, peels into the pits. I think we're damage to the car. And Tristan Dino Brigger in the end. Well, the man is absolutely fearless. You've got to give him credit for Racing Team Astra Blue. He does not know fear. He literally just came charging through and said, you know what, if Aerosmith's going to get it wrong, I'm making it through safely. And he's made it. Well, that, I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to be in the car with Tristan Dino Brigger ever again, because that was absolutely scary but wonderful. But as he makes his way through turn number 2, in fact, I'll retract my statement. I'll happily be in the car with him because he's that brave. Well, it's absolute credit to him as he makes his way through the corner. And meanwhile, I'm hearing that Paul Walton has had a major moment. He's dropped down to P2 in the LMP2 AM class, right behind Paul Scott. And in terms of where it's happened, we're hearing it's happened in the Mercedes arena only moments ago. And the RD Simsport driver now has got it all to do as he makes his way up behind Paul Scott. To be fair, he hasn't lost out to Sam Holman, and well, that will give him a little bit of momentum in his favour. At least that will keep him in a positive mindset. He's only got one driver to retake, but it's Paul Scott, to be fair. And Paul Scott, not an easy driver to overtake, no doubt about that, as they make the way up towards turn number 10. But you can see already how much he's closed up to the back of Paul Scott in terms of the time. Albeit that is Gaz Williams, to be fair, but he's already taken half a second out of Paul Scott, who's a bit further up the road. And Gaz Williams, of course, involved in that earlier incident at the start of the race, and therefore that's why he is a lap down right now as they make the way in towards the Vidal chicane. And Paul Scott, where is he? Here he is. He's now got Paul Walton bearing down on him, and well, the time is looking as though there's not a lot of time before Walton is going to be there trying to look for the move as they both share the camera space now. They go on to what for them is lap number 12, but as they come across that timeline and head on down into the opening corner, we do look from them back to our GT3 battlers, and in particular we do, in fact, Gaz Williams is not a lap down. We should clarify, he was listed as a lap down briefly there, but he is not a lap down. That is a glitch of our timing screen. He is on the same lap as Paul Walton, but he is being passed by Paul Walton. As meanwhile we look back here to our GT3s of Vin Glenn, here right now following Turnbull through, and Matthew Turnbull has found his way past Andrew Holmes, as we did see earlier, and now he's looking to go hunting after Matthew Hodges. Well, it is the case that Turnbull will be thinking out where can he go for the move. He is closing at rapid rate of knots. He took 4 tenths of a second out of Hodges that last lap as they make the way on around, albeit this lap I think it'll be a bit compromised. He has got Skinner, Dan Skinner, coming up the inside there, the Excite Racing LMP2 driver coming on through, but Turnbull's not going to let that phase him as he flashes his lights there, and I think to say, well, thank you, I've just lost a bit of time, and I think Skinner's just going to shrug his shoulders at that and go, well, I'm in the faster car, and I made it clear I was going through. But as they make the way out to turn number 7 up towards 8, here's the case that Hodges here chasing after Gavin Gardner. Gavin Gardner's going to be really hoping that Skinner does not come through or through the chicane itself, but in the run up towards turn 10, indeed that's the way it works out. But Skinner has cost Gardner a bit of momentum. Matthew Hodges looks up the inside as they make the way through turn 10 into 11 they go, and now we ride on board the gearbox here. Gavin Gardner, who has got a whole train of GT3s behind, all baying for his position of P2 in the GT3 Pro Apex Race, the category class. We see Sam Holman coming on through there. This is only getting more tense by the moment as they make the way up towards the braking zone for Vidal, and there's no way through as we see that Phil McDougall tucked in behind his teammate, and he won't want to compromise Hodges at all. He'll wait until they make the way out the final corner and onto the start finish straight before he looks for a move past his teammate in the opposite class. As they make the way now down the start finish straight, you can see Phil McDougall coming through, and Gavin Gardner has been given a bit of breathing room, albeit it may only be for a bit of a lap, but it's breathing room nonetheless as they make the way down towards turn number 1. As they come roaring on down, of course, the leader of this class, the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, Eduardo Francoscini, he's just disappearing off up the road. He's 4.1 seconds clear and continuing to run away with things at the moment as they make the way through turn 2 and into 3. And as they come charging on down right now, it is a situation whereby, well, you can see Vin Glenn really just trying to hang on to the back of this group. He's doing so very well, to be fair, and he's waiting for that opportunity. But a bit further back, we see Maurizio Marconi here all over the back of Holmes now as they make the way down towards turn number 5. This is the battle of P6 in class, and as they roll the way into the left hand, and Marconi's going to try and go outside to inside, and it has been done before, but it's a bit too late there on the brakes, and therefore he's not able to get in before the door is shut by Andrew Holmes, who covers him off very well. And as they make the way down towards turn number 7, you can see Lee Horn in the rear of the picture just waiting. Bit of a patient hunter and trying to stay in this fight as they head out of the hairpin and now up towards the Schumacher S as they come charging up the hill. But as we look from them to a bit further down the road, I can tell you that Matt Emmons right now currently running P4 in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class. He's got a long way to go, and he's already taken a pit stop, to be fair, and he is hunting after Nigel Stock. You can see at Matthew He's taken his scheduled stop. He's been one of the first pit stops to be taken according to a scheduled stop. Wait to see how that plays out in practice. Behind him there is Tristan Di Nobrega, who has taken a pit stop as well. The Racing Team Astra Blue driver's got a long way to go now, and Mark Arrowsmith, we do believe, has retired alongside Adam Delmont and Robert De Ceunick and Jim Stanton. Unfortunately, we've had 4 retirements so far, but looking from our AM drivers, our pro drivers in the GT3 class, we do look back up to Matthew Hodges here, who finds himself in the precarious position of being both a hunter and also the hunted, as right now Turnbull right there behind him. And the CXR Project Black driver is having to look in his rearview mirror more and more with each and every straight as they make their way through the right hand of turn number 1. But as they do, speaking of closing up and battles growing, we can see Chris Daines here, who we ride on board with, hunting after Jamie Dorey for the lead of the LMP PRO class. And as they make their way out of the hairpin and through the Schumacher S here, Chris Daines, of course, not wanting to leave any points on the table for anyone. He's thirsty for wins left, right and centre, as he did say in his post-round interview at Suzuka that he's going to turn up regardless of whether he'd won the championship or not, and continue to want to pick up every trophy and leave that marker, if you will. And right now he is really putting that pressure on Jamie Dorey as they make the way up towards turn number 13. They look in towards Vidal here, and as they roll the way on through, Chris Daines there with a snap downshift under trail braking there. That shows you the confidence he has in the car, and Jamie Dorey, to be fair, keeping him at bay very well as they make the way out to the final corner onto the start finish straight. He's going to have a lot of momentum here. Will he be able to make it count, or will he just tuck in a fuel save here? We'll listen in. He decides in the end to back out. He just makes a little feint to the inside and then just put the brakes on and ease the car into the corner. Chris Daines putting pressure on, but fuel saving at the same time, being very tactical in his driving style here. What about Paul Scott versus Paul Walton? Well, Paul Scott's the leader of the LMP2 AM class here with 24 minutes complete. Paul Walton behind after that spin in the Mercedes arena earlier on. And as they make the way through turn number 2 here, you can see that's Peter Herschel, who is ahead right now, P3 in the LMP2 Pro class, running a happy P3. But right now he's going to be worrying a little bit about the 2 pools behind him, who both want to try and come on through and hold on to that lead of the LMP2 AM class. And Paul Scott here under huge pressure as they make their way into turn number 5. As they roll their way through the corner, it is the case. We can see, oh goodness me, Paul Walton there showing an uncharacteristic mistake under braking into turn number 6, locking up the brakes, just being too aggressive, and that shows you how hard he's having to push to hunt Paul Scott as they make their way into turn 7. And as they roll their way through the hairpin here, he's closing up, there's no doubt about that, but I think you might need to just keep in check how much pressure he's putting on the car right now, for the simple reason he makes that mistake too many times, and those brakes are going to be in pain as we hear that Jochen Siegert gets into the pit lane. In fact, I look out my commentary box window, I can see the German driver is coming through right now to take his scheduled stop from P2 in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class. But as Paul Walton continues that pursuit, we see Mark Grant in the Facebook chat there cheering on Paul Walton, and as they make the way now down the back straight all the way up to Vidal, it is the case. Walton looking close, but does he dare to go to the inside into Vidal? No, he doesn't consider it. I think it'd be a little bit too much of a risk. And as they make the way on through, they carry on racing, and Paul Walton in fact comes into the pits. He's going for the undercut. He feels the strategy needs an undercut now if he wants to take that position. Meanwhile, carrying on, the leaders of the LMP2 Pro class, neither of them have come in. Jamie Dorey still leads ahead of Chris Daines, as Daines right now gives that hot pursuit. They roll the way on through 2 and down into turn number 3. They come charging on around no change between the pair of them right now as they come out of the Mercedes arena, but Daines definitely looking the closer of the two as they make the way on towards turn number 5. And well, Chris Daines, I think really the mastermind of making what is Jamie Dorey play to his rhythm with regards to the fact he's making these little feints, these little attempts at moves, but also fuel saving at the same time, and that just shows you how much pace the Danishman is delivering. That's not to take away from the Britain of Jamie Dorey, to be fair, but Chris Daines has options available. Jamie Dorey does not really have that many options. I think he'll feel that if he pits before Chris Daines does, then he loses out on track position authority, where he has that right to then come in after Chris Daines, and Daines then has to worry about the traffic that may be in his way when he comes out the pits. But right now as they head up towards turn number 10, Daines just staying right there and keeping Jamie Dorey right in his sights. As meanwhile we look from them to Matthew Hodges, who's continuing to run in P3 in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. And as they make their way through the Mercedes arena, we have lost briefly, I do believe. I think it's, well, I can't see Turnbull at the moment. I believe Turnbull has come into the pits. Yep, he has indeed, and that would explain a lot unless I'm very much mistaken. But Matthew Turnbull into the pits, and now it is the case that with him having taken his stop, he's avoiding the battle in here. I think Matthew Turnbull is actually pulling off a very smart strategy here, because this battle for P2 in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, we hear Chris Daines has taken the lead of the LMP2 Pros, and it's Jamie Dorey who's come into the pits. So Jamie Dorey has gone far enough, but I think these guys battling and running like this are only going to cost one another time, and Turnbull is aware of that, and he's decided enough's enough. As we ride on board here with Vin Glenn in the Deutsche Payment Esports BMW M4 as they make their way up the hill. We're hearing that Paul Walton's coming on through. He'll be on the left of the picture very shortly. You can see Gavin Gardner there literally having to put the car in the left-hand side of the road, having to cover the inside off, and now Paul Walton is sandwiched between 3 GT3s. Now how's he going to navigate his way through this? He has to do so very precariously there, as it's the case that Matthew Hodges didn't want to lose out, and Hodges has lost out there, and now Vin Glenn's going to look for the move as they make their way up towards Vidal. He takes a peep, but in the end it's not enough. He just does not have enough into Vidal. The depth of the move, but he gets very close to the rear as Hodges pops it into the pit lane there. A bit of a tap to the rear, which caught Vin Glenn by surprise. It's all kicking off here as we head towards the halfway point of the feature race at the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecker Circuit, and as they make their way across the timeline right now, Gavin Gardner, I kid you not right now, if you're looking for the defense of the season, this is it right now, because if he can hold on to this P2 by the checkered flag, I'm going out there and saying it right now, unless somebody pulls off an absolute miracle defence, it will be Gavin Gardner who takes defence of the season. There's no award for it, there's no nomination for it, but I'm putting it out there because the Verano Motorsport driver right now has made that Ferrari so wide and impossible to pass, and every time there's an LMP coming up, he has used that LMP to his advantage, and now Vin Glenn has got to find a way on in as this battle continues on. Edoardo Frankishin, meanwhile, is happily running the leader of the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. The DRS Esport LMS1 driver, the Italian, just happily driving out there. To be fair, his pace isn't the fastest. Matthew Turnbull is currently showing the fastest pace of anybody in the GT3 class. Here it's the case that Turnbull is 6/10 of a second a lap faster by comparison, but Frankishin has track position, he has clear track on his side as well, and he doesn't have to worry about anything, and that's a lovely place to be when you're in a 1 hour race as he makes his way up towards turn number 10. As he rolls on through, we're hearing that Elwin Sykes is into the pit lane. He's currently parked up and being serviced as we do wait to see the McLaren driver where he'll come out in the IMB Raceway GT3 AM class, but we look from him to Tristan Dino Brega, who right now, having taken that early stop, is trying to close up. Lorenzo Gualtieri has also taken his stop, and right now Dino Brega running P2 in the GT3 AM IMB Raceway class behind Matt Emmons there as they roll their way on through, and these two really need to avoid tripping over one another right now as they both want to keep their championship campaigns, or particularly their championship leads, alive, and to do so they need to work together or simply settle their differences and let the faster of the two drivers go. And it does look as though Dino Brega right now is the faster of the two, as we're hearing that Edoardo Frankishin, Gavin Gardner and Vin Glenn are all into the pits, and as I look out my commentating box window, it is pit stop season down there. All the crews are getting ready to go to work, and that is going to be a huge moment in the battle for P2, indeed the battle for the podium in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. And what we do look at, ladies and gentlemen, as we see Gavin Gardner into the pits. That's Edoardo Frankishin parked up currently. Where's Maurizio Marconi? He's coming in. There's Vin Glenn behind him as well, as also into the pits that I do believe that is is Lee Horn. Now, who's going to come out the head of these guys as they're all waiting? Chris Daines is into the pit lane as well from the lead of the LMP2 Pro class. We are just waiting, and there's Eduardo Frankishin. He's been released. What about Gavin Gardner? Well, Vin Glenn's gone before Gavin Gardner. Vin Glenn has jumped Gardner in the pit lane, so it's the case he's been able to pull off the strategy. I suspect he's done some fuel saving whilst all the battling's gone on. Meanwhile, we see Matthew Turnbull coming down the start-finish straight, and as they make the way down, Turnbull went for the undercut, and he's made it work. Matthew Turnbull has jumped from P5 to P2 by taking the undercut by 2 laps, and the Pure Sims driver here in a brilliant strategic gamble has made this work by literally a hair's width. If he got it any bit wrong with regards to his outlaps, it would have been the case he'd be behind Vin Glenn right now. Vin Glenn pulled off a strategic masterclass, and then Matthew Turnbull said, well, you can hold my beer, thank you very much. I'm going to pull off a strategic masterclass 2.0, and it is the case that Turnbull has delivered, but Vin Glenn looks to the inside, but there's no way through as they make the way out of turn number 6 and head down towards turn 7. They come charged on down at this point, and Matthew Turnbull right now with 28 minutes on the clock. I think he'll want to go hunting after Eduardo Frankishin, but he'll know that Vin Glenn is right there with him. But to be fair, these two were like this much earlier on in the race. They were running nose to tail. I think Vin Glenn is respectful of the fact he doesn't need to beat Turnbull here in order to get what will be the win accredited after the race, given the fact that Turnbull is a guest driver within the class. So as they make the way up towards turn number 10 right now, Vin Glenn are watching very closely and just staying with Turnbull here and trying to keep that pace to break away from Gavin Gardner, who has come back out ahead of Matthew Hodges. And I think Matthew Hodges at this point may be cursing under his helmet visor for the simple reason, what does he have to do to get past Gavin Gardner? Well, the short answer is he has to make a pass on circuit. As they make the way on through, and the CXR Project Black driver here has got it all to do now if he wants to have a shot at that potential podium come the end of the race. But as they make the way through the corners here and up towards the final corner on this lap, we do look from our GT3 drivers to our LMP2 Pro Class drivers, and we can see here that after the pit stops, Chris Daines has come out ahead of Jamie Dorey. He has jumped ahead of Jamie Dorey through the pit strategy with a gap of 9.4 seconds. My goodness, that is a jump and a half. And indeed, Chris Daines' pit time was 4.5 seconds faster than Jamie Dorey's. That shows you how much of a delta there was in the pit stop. And Gaz Williams right now up to P3. He's recovered this race quite nicely from the start, and he's got Peter Herschel behind, who he's passed recently. And now it's the case of Rhino Motorsport driver trying to give pursuit to the next gen racing driver as they make the way through the final corner. But meanwhile, talking strategy, Nigel Stock coming out the pit lane. He was leading, but Matt Emmons has come on through already to retake P2, and now he's got to hunt down Matthew Addy, and Matthew Addy has taken the stop. So it's the battle of the two Matts as they make the way on through, and with the two teammates as well. And every time they've been close together battling for the lead, it's always come to tears over the course of this season so far. Matthew Addy the leading of the two, and will we see them come to blows once again? Matt Emmons will know that he wants that Grand Slam, and he said to me in the build-up to tonight he wanted to get as many points on board. He was itching for a Grand Slam to put to bed the woes of last season in the GT3 Championship Season 2, where he was on course to win the championship, and it all fell apart in the last 2 rounds where he just did not have those results. But right now, as he goes hunting after Matthew Addy, it's all looking good. And if he can get past Matthew Addy, does he hold the fastest lap within the class right now? That is the question as well. No, he doesn't hold the fastest lap. In fact, he does. He does, in fact, hold the fastest lap. He could get that Grand Slam and take a huge point towards the final race, and therefore put all the pressure on Addy and Nigel Stock. But as they make the way up towards turn 10, he won't be thinking about that right now. He'll be thinking about hunting down his teammate, and you can see a little bit further back there in P3. With Nigel Stock, you can see in the rear of the picture, he has got to deal with the fact he's got there coming through Paul Scott, and he's hunting after, you can see it's Nigel Stock for the final step of the podium to try and do some damage limitation as they make the way through turn at number 11. But still plenty of twists and turns in this race, no doubt, as our drivers push on. And as they do, we do look to Lorenzo Gualtieri here, who the leader of the GT3 AM IMB Racewear class, looking very comfortable right now in that lead. He does have a 5-second advantage over Tristan Di Nobrega, who we see here running P2 in the class behind Matthew Addy as they make their way down the start finish straight onto lap number 19 for our GT3s they go. And as they come into that braking zone, Tristan Di Nobrega going up the inside of Matthew Addy, and this will of course be what Matt Emmons was hoping for in terms of Di Nobrega being a bit of an inconvenience to Addy, costing him some time. And as they roll their way through the Mercedes arena here, you can see Addy having to tuck in behind, and with Gaz Williams coming on through as well. It is the case now as Williams tries to look for the space. Addy has to back out there coming into turn 4, and this is an absolutely punishing moment for Matthew Addy, because now look at how much damage it's done. Emmons moments ago was a couple of seconds behind, as even more LMP2s are going through. That behind is Peter Schell and Paul Walton, who are battling for position, overall position, and Matthew Addy's now got to deal with them coming through. Fortunately for him, he'll have a short straight in which he can let them through up the inside here, but Matt Emmons is now only a second behind and closing still as they roll away through the hairpin, and as they come through the right hand here. Tristan Dina Brega looking a bit out of sorts under braking now, I have to say, but they come charging up the hill, and well, it's the case now. Addy, I think, will be hoping he can settle into a bit more of a rhythm, because his rhythm has been severely disturbed, and you can understand why as they make the way up towards turn number 10. But as they come and charging on through, it is a situation where as they come through the left hand at turn number 10, we can see they come through 11 now, and as they roll their way down, Addy gaining Tristan Dina Brega here, and as they make the way on out of the corner, Emmons now just tucking in and waiting. So this is looking a little bit strange with regards to the way it's playing out here. Addy, I think, has found that rhythm. Tristan Dina Brega, I think, a bit unsettled after the LMP2 cars coming on through, but as they make the way through the chicane, no change right now, but Emmons definitely right there. And meanwhile, Matthew Turnbull has just taken the lead of the GT3 Pro Apex Race, the Academy class. And well, Eduardo Frankenstein, I think, out of sorts there for turns 1 and 2. He's having to defend versus Vin Glenn now, who goes for the cutback out of 4. Now, will Vin Glenn be able to get the run out of the corner and down towards 5? He's got the momentum, definitely, but will he have it on the brakes? No, he waits. He plays it the safety card, which is to, instead of going into turn number 5, he'll look into 6. Eduardo Frankenstein there just closes the door just about, but he has to keep it open slightly, as it was the fact that Vin Glenn got his nose in there at the last possible minute. And as they make the way down towards turn number 7, in towards the hairpin they go. Frankenstein on the outside, Vin Glenn up the inside, and Vin Glenn they're making it look simple. Well, indeed, it wasn't so simple. He did have to get his nose in there to disrupt Frankenstein's rhythm into turn number 6, and Vin Glenn up to P2. But it is the case that Turnbull is now leading, and he's 1.4 seconds clear, and I don't think he's going to let Vin Glenn come back if he can help it, as they make the way up into turn number 10. Now, as they roll the way on through the turn 10 apex and in towards 11, they come charging on around, and meanwhile we do look from them to a bit further down the order once again in the same class, the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class, and we can see Maurizio Macconi here chasing Artico Melomatello. We're still hunting down Matthew Hodges. This battle's still going on for P5 in the class, and nobody has been able to find a way past Matthew Hodges so far. Where's Gavin Gardner in all this, however? I hear you ask. He is 2.2 seconds clear of Matthew Hodges right now in P4. Really the best of the rest outside of the top 3, and Gavin Gardner trying to fight on. He won't, I don't think he'll feel that it was a season best result. I can tell you his defending all the way up to the pit stop was absolutely brilliant. He should be giving himself a pat on the back for that as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. He'll be hoping he can take that third place off of Eduardo Frankenstein. He's still got just over 20 minutes to go. We will wait and see whether he's able to do so. But when we look from him to the leader of the GT3 AM Apex Races Academy class, and that is Matthew Addy, with Matt Emmons right behind him as they make the way down the start finish straight, and we ride on board with the second place challenger. As they make the way under braking here into turn 1, you can see Addy goes a bit deep there, but he's able to bring the car back together to hold a nice inside line into 2, and Matt Emmons getting close as they roll their way through the apex and now down into turn number 3. And this is where the Audi will have the advantage. It's stronger under trail braking and rotation compared to its peers within the class, but it's very sensitive to over rotation and curbs. And well, Matt Emmons showing it can take some curbs there as they make the way through 3 and 4. Now heading up towards turn 5 as they come on, and you can see under braking that Emmons just able to go a little bit later on the brakes as they now head through 6. Addy out of position there, he's understeering wide, and that's going to give Emmons every opportunity he needs. As Addy returns, he's going to be on the outside. They make the way down towards turn number 7, into the hairpin they go, and as they make the way under braking it, Emmons up the inside. Addy will look to try and get the momentum out of the hairpin, but I don't think he's going to have enough. What with the fact they do have Phil McDougall coming on through, the LMP2 driver, and as they make the way up into the Schumacher S, Phil McDougall puts himself between the 2 GT3s, and Emmons there, I think, with a championship critical pass in the fact he's been able to get into lead, and now if he can break away with 20 minutes to go and not put a foot wrong. He is looking firmly in control for a double win, potentially a Grand Slam, and that will put him with one hand on the championship crown going into the season finale at Le Mans as they make the way up towards Vidal once again. But Addy here staying with him for the time being as they make the way up towards Vidal's chicane. I think it's only on the straight that Lamborghini is going to be staying close. I think once they make the way through the corners, the gap will reopen a little bit, and indeed it does open up by half a tenth there. And Emmons now, to be fair, Addy has been pushing hard, but Emmons just has a little bit more in the tank as they make the way onto another lap. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see it here, has been passed by Nigel Stock. That's happened quite recently, in fact, as they make the way through. That was a P3 in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class. And as they make the way out of the corner and down towards turn number 1, Stock now hunting after Matthew Addy, but the gap is 11.1 seconds. And Nigel Stock has got a lot to do if he wants to close that up, even with 19 minutes plus the final lap to go. That's a lot of time, and Jochen Seeger is not one to back out of battling. He will stay right with Nigel Stock if he can and go for the return move for P3. He'll want to be on that podium, as meanwhile Sean Cranny-Swash battling with Darren Doherty. We haven't had too much time to cover these guys so far. We can see they're battling for P5 in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class, and as they roll the way on through, it is Darren Doherty, the leader of the two, as they make the way in towards turn number 3. And we'll wait to see whether there's an overtake on the cards for Sean Cranny-Swash, or whether it's the case that Darren Doherty is able to keep him at bay. But as they make the way out of 4 and head up towards turn number 5, it is the case in the meantime. As we see there, that is Mark Sykes coming on through. In the meantime, Chris Daines here continuing to lead in a world of his own at the front of the field, 19.2 seconds clear in the LMP2 Pro class of Jamie Dorey, who has got Gaz Williams behind him and well, 2 teammates here. Remembering the fact that Gaz Williams has effectively already achieved second place in the LMP2 Pro Class Championship. He can't be denied it now based on his run of results. So I think the question is, do they let Jamie Dorey run in P2 for the team and also for his championship campaign, or does Gaz Williams go for the move later on? I suspect they'll do the former rather than the latter, because it would make sense for Next Gen Racing, but then again, we'll wait and see. They'd love to battle one another, I'm sure of that. And as they make the way out to turn 4 and up towards 5, Jamie Dorey, the leader of the two of them now, as they make the way into turn 5 and through 6. But as they come on through, we look from them to Matthew Turnbull, the leader of the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, and right now continuing to lead that class and open up a gap very gradually to Vin Glenn, is the Pure Sims driver of what is now 2.4 seconds. That gap opening up by only a couple attempts, if that lap. The last lap, he opened it up by 2 attempts versus Vin Glenn, both of them putting in personal best laps. And well, Matthew Turnbull, in fact, setting the fastest lap of the racing class, a 52.32, Vin Glenn a 52.53. So it shows you just how hard they're pushing. But Vin Glenn, to his credit right now, not letting Turnbull get away easily, really keeping Turnbull honest as they make the way up through the Schumacher S. A bit further back, however, Matthew Hodges still holding on to that P5 position within the class as we ride on board his gearbox here, looking back at what is Carmelo Martello and Maurizio Marconi. And Marconi and Martello just have not found a way past, and this is absolutely astounding, particularly from Martello and Marconi to a lesser extent, given the pace they showed at Suzuka. And it does seem as though the Audi is quite strong here, depending on which class it's in. We're seeing that in the hands of Matt Emmons, for example, and also Eduardo Frankenstein further up the road. But it just seems like Martello and Marconi are just not happy at the Nürburgring circuit, and Matthew Hodges is having a very fun run with them right now as they make their way up towards Vidal once again. As they come roaring into the braking zone here, for turns 13 and 14, you can see how the Audi, the more composed when the braking zone is nailed through the chicane, and Hodges now having to use this straight line acceleration coming out of the final corner to keep Martello at bay. But in fact, losing a bit of ground there, with Martello inching closer as they make the way down the start finish straight. We can see coming up the inside, that's Phil McDougall, who will be making his way up the inside of the pair of them rather rapidly. And in fact, he outbrakes himself, goes straight on this Phil McDougall, and that's very unfortunate. I think that might be a brake failure. In fact, he's jumped to the pits. I think Phil McDougall's had a brake failure into turn 1, and that is a disaster for Phil McDougall with only 15 minutes of the race to go. But Matthew Hodges now under major pressure as Carmelo Martello is right all over the back of him as they roll their way through turns 3 and 4, and they battle on for P5 in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. as they head down towards turn number 5. In this case, Martello's not able to go up the inside. He'll wait for turn 6 or 7. He's going to consider it in 6. No, he backs off. He plays the smart card here, which is to get the momentum out of 6 to go for the charge down to 7. But I don't think he's close enough as they roll their way down in towards the braking zone for the Dunlop hairpin as they come under braking. You can see McConey now getting closer as well as we ride on board here with Carmelo Martello coming out of the corner, and now it's the furious charge all the way up towards turn number 10 through the Schumacher as they go. And as they do, you can see there Hodges getting it a bit wrong, taking a bit too much curve on the first part of the Schumacher. Losing some momentum. That Ferrari's still able to carry enough speed as they come into turn 10, but it does look as though Hodges now really on the limit of what is possible in that Ferrari, as Martello's staying right there with him as they make the way out of the corner. But this is where the Ferrari's just got enough legs as they make the way through the right-hander and up towards Vidal. Now will Martello duck to the inside this time? He's almost there. He's within touching distance. He's going to look for it. Up the inside he goes into Vidal, and I think that's going to be P5 unless Hodges can come back at him into the final corner. Hodges considers it, but then it's McConey up the inside there of a very late dive. I don't think Hodges saw that coming until the last moment and had to chuck the steering wheel open, but McConey seizing on the loss of momentum for Hodges in the end, and the DRS eSport drivers both gaining the place, and McConey with a very smart move at the last possible moment. That's P6 in the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class for him, and it's P5 for Martello. But as they make the way up the hill now and into turn number 2, it is the situation where Matthew Hodges will not let this go easily as they head down through the Mercedes arena here, and Hodges at this point will be thinking, okay, you pulled one on me, now I'm going to come back at you. And as they roll their way through turn number 4, he'll need some time to set this up, given the fact that Audi does seem to be the stronger of the two, but how much have they taken out of the tyres on those Audis? That will be the big question. But as they make the way on through, we look from them to a bit further down the order, and particularly to Lee Horn here, who's all over the back of Andrew Holmes in the battle for P8 in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. This seems to be the class with all the battle in action right now, so we're staying with it if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen. And as they make their way through what is the right hander of turn number 6 and down towards 7, Lee Horn here keeping Holmes honest as they come charging into the hairpin. But I don't think he's going to be able to find a move this time around. Nope, he's going to have to wait and look for another opportunity. As they come on through, we look from them all the way back up towards the front of the field and to Gaz Williams here, who is chasing after his teammate Jamie Dorey. They've been like this for the last couple of laps. I think Gaz Williams is gradually trying to build pressure here. I think he's giving Dorey an opportunity to try and break away, and if not, then the two teammates will go battling within the final 5 to 10 minutes here. And as they roll their way out of the Mercedes arena, well, Jamie Dorey has not been as fast as Gaz Williams lap on lap, pace on pace at each and individual race, but as they make the way on through right now, to give credit to Jamie Dorey, he's definitely keeping his head down and not letting the presence of his teammate daunt him as they come charging down. And it's the case that Matthew Turnbull sets the fastest lap in the GT3 classes of a 1 at 52.112 that time around. Absolutely phenomenal pace, and well, it is the case he's breaking away from Vin Glenn. But we focus here on this battle between our two LMP2 drivers, and it's the case that Gaz Williams are very much staying with Jamie Dorey and sizing up that move later on, or will he be? Will he just stay in formation? We'll have to wait and see. As meanwhile, Paul Walton here, currently P2 in the LMP2 AM class, where he's got Paul Scott 11 seconds up the road, and that's Dan Skinner in front of him right now in the LMP2 Pro class. I think Walton will want his way past Skinner to go hunting after Paul Scott. And as they make their way up towards turn number 10, it is the case that in terms of lap time right now, Paul Walton is taking approximately 0.8 of a second a lap out of Paul Scott, lap on lap in clean air. So it could be the idea that if Paul Walton is able to up that closure rate to a second a lap, it may be possible if Paul Scott was to make a mistake or two, but otherwise right now he needs to take at least 1.5 seconds out if he wants to be there on the offensive on that final lap, and that's what Walton's now got to find. He's got to find that lap time. Paul Scott that last time around, a 43.243. Meanwhile, what did Paul Walton achieve by comparison as he makes his way across the line? At 43.904. The gap is going backwards. It's opening, and Paul Walton's now got to find his way past Skinner, who goes defensive into turn 1. Skinner does not want to stay through, as meanwhile Williams has has found his way round the outside there, Jamie Dorey, into turn 5. So Gaz Williamson then gets the move done in the LMP2 Pro class of P2, and now he's going to go chasing after Chris Daines, who is 20.6 seconds up the road. And as they come right on down this time, Turnbull's putting in even faster laps in the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class of 52.059 is now the fastest lap to beat. But meanwhile, all eyes go back to the battle for the lead of the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class. In the fact, we have Matt Emmons here, who is trying to hold off Matthew Addy the advantage, only 7/10 of a second, and since being past, Matthew Addy is now showing a lot more pace and consistency. I think it's the case that Matthew Addy may be one of those drivers who enjoys giving chase rather than being chased. And as they make the way out of the final corner, 10 minutes still on the clock, Evans definitely under pressure as they head on down. Of course, these two teammates will want it to be a P1, P2, the next gen racing with Sam Case's UK. That will go very well for the team's aspirations to finish in the top 5 of the team's championship when all is said and done. But as they come down in towards turn number 1, of course, that team's championship sponsored by Mark Sykes Designs. It is the case that Matthew Addy right now having to get back into this battle with limited time remaining on the clock as he runs a little bit wide there out of 2, just being a little bit aggressive with the throttle application. The car understeering wide as he comes towards the second half of the Mercedes arena and now exits it. Meanwhile, at the back of the pack in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class, we have Sean Cranny Swash battling for P5 with Darren Doherty, who's just ahead of him. Behind that is Stefan Albanese, who's trying to overtake for track position in what is the GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class. But I don't think Cranny Swash wants to give him that place for the simple reason he wants to hunt Darren Doherty as they make the way through turn number 3. They come charging on through. And Cranny Swash at this point doing everything in his power to really put that pressure on. And as we ride on board here with the Verano Motorsport driver getting the better exit out of the arena, but he's just not close enough to contemplate that move. He needs Darren Doherty to make a mistake. Well, Darren Doherty's gone very slow. There's a bit of a tap to the rear of the Lamborghini in front. Just a very light tap in the end. No major damage to both drivers. But Darren Doherty, they're out of sorts coming through turns 5 and 6. And now Cranny Swash will look to the inside here. Darren Doherty covers him off by breaking it towards the apex, pointing the car right in towards the apex. And as they roll the way on out here, Cranny Swash now definitely looking to be the aggressor of the two of them as they make the way up through the Schumacher S. As they roll on through here, Cranny Swash once again getting the better run. Now, can he go for the move? Darren Doherty covers it off. Instead, no, he has to wait. It is Cranny Swash as they roll their way through turn 10, up towards 11, up into the Bilstein curve. And as they roll the way on through, the Verano Motorsport driver inching closer each and every corner, but he can't find his way on through right now. Instead, has to watch and wait for that opportunity. He has to try and create one by getting close enough. As he Darren Doherty goes defensive initially, but in the end backs it off to the racing line. He knows that Cranny Swash isn't close enough, and Swash instead stays behind as they make the way up towards the final corner. And that time is running out, of course, as they make the way up towards another lap. They will go on to what for them will be lap number 28 in short order. Behind them, you can see that is Paul Walton and also Dan Skinner. Paul Walton at this point, of course, damage limitation after losing out on that pursuit of Paul Scott early on, and that gap's not coming down as much as he would like it to. But to be fair, Stefan Vessel's being absent, I think Paul Walton will be very pleased with the way the points are going here today regardless, as they make the way up through the Mercedes arena. It is the case, and when I say Vessel's been absent from this race, of course he did feature in the sprint race, we should point out, but Paul Walton having to siphon his way through the traffic. But as he rolls his way on through, we do look here to Lorenzo Gualtieri battling with his rival in the championship, Tristan Dina Brega. Dina Brega, of course, being the leader in the GT3 IMB Racewear class. Lorenzo Gualtieri being the pursuer in the challenger. And right now, Tristan Dina Brega trying to find a way on through. Our winner, of course, in the sprint race here today. And now trying to make it 2 wins out of 2. And Gualtieri will need this win if he wants to keep that championship pursuit alive going into the final round. It will still be alive regardless, but in terms of having it on an even footing, if he loses out the lead here now, it will be the case the momentum is with Dino Brega, and Dino Brega could afford to finish behind him to take the championship as they roll the way through Vidal. Not long to go, 6 minutes plus the final lap, and these two very close together as they roll their way through the final corner. As they come to that timeline, we can see there that is Gaz Williams and Jamie Dorey, and they seem to have settled their differences with Gaz Williams open up enough of a gap, and Tristan Dina Brega now giving pursuit as they make the way down towards turn number 1, and Gualtieri there finds himself pinned to the middle of the road as he does have Jamie Dorey go around the outside, and Dina Brega tries to go around the outside with him, but he can't quite find it this time. He takes a little sniff to the inside into 2. There's not enough room to go for it. He has to wait, and as we ride on board here with the Ferrari driver, Where else can he go for it? He comes in very hot into 3. Gualtieri out of sorts there as they roll through 3 and into 4 now. And Tristan Nürburgring definitely really getting the technical aspects of Mercedes Arena on point. Very technical section there. You need to park the car exactly where it needs to be to get on the power early on exit. And Nürburgring really capitalising there on late apexes versus Gualtieri, but he takes a bit too much apex curve there at turn 6 and upsets all of the momentum he gains. And that gap now opens back up to 8/10 of a second almost as they head into turn number 7. He's got it all to do again. But you can see the difference in lines there. Gualtieri taking a U-shaped line through the hairpin. Meanwhile, Nürburgring taking a V-shape, and he closes up 3/10 alone just through one corner as they now make the way up towards turn number 10. They go charging through the Schumacher S, and as they come roaring on through, will we see Nürburgring be close enough this time? Surely not. He's too far back there, but you can see under brake, he closes dramatically. And right now, Gualtieri just having to keep his head down and focus on what lies ahead of him and deliver lap after lap, because that pressure is building to a crescendo here as they make the way down the back straight up towards Vidal's chicane. And Nürburgring is going to have the momentum here, but he's unfortunately upset by an LMP, but he's going to look for the move on the inside. He's not close enough into Vidal, and in the end it's the case that Gualtieri takes a bit too much of the apex curve of the second part of Vidal. He covers off the inside into the final corner. They roll their way through the right hander here of turn number 15, and as they make the way out, there's only a few more laps for these two as they cross that timing line. Then there's only 4 minutes to go, and as they do, Nürburgring looking very aggressive now as they make the way down towards turn 1. To be fair, with 1.5 minutes between them and third place man Elwin Sykes, there's a lot they can play for. Nürburgring's going to go around the outside into 1. He can't quite find it. Gualtieri covers him off and makes him have to go back around. You see a flash of lights there from Nürburgring. I think that was more just the brake lights coming on and then off and back on again, where he's having to stay so close and balance the brakes. But right now this battle is absolutely on the limit, and Nürburgring trying to get back into that lead as much as he can. And do keep in mind, of course, they're both from Racing Team Astra, but one of them's from Orange, that's Gualtieri, one of them's from the blue outfit, that is Nürburgring. And right now you think they're for completely different teams, not sister teams, in the fact they are racing for now for the win in the IMB race where GT3 AM class, as they make the way out to turn number 6 and down towards 7. But as they do in the meantime, they come charging down at this point. No change at the moment. Nürburgring definitely staying very close. This is one of the closest battles on the circuit, so we'll stay with it for the time being, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, this is the closest battle right now as they roll their way up the hill. But this time, Gualtieri getting the better run uphill and not losing as much momentum through the Schumacher S. He's safe for the time being, or is he? As Nürburgring takes a little peek to the inside into turn number 10. It's a feint, it's a dummy, it's not a serious commitment. And as they roll their way through turn number 11 now, you can see behind that is Paul Scott, leader of the LMP2 AM class, coming on through. But as both drivers in the GT3s respect him coming on through, that neutralises the battle for a brief moment. As they come charging up the hill, not many more laps to go. The race leader, Chris Daines, is already making his way through the Mercedes arena, so we will have one more lap after this one for Gualtieri and Tristan Nürburgring. So it will be the case that after the lap they're going on to, so they've only got 2 laps remaining now when they cross the timing line this time. We have 2 minutes on the clock as well. And, well, it'll be the fact that Chris Daines right now in a very comfortable lead here. We're at 22.3 seconds on the clock. He can afford to run this race as much or as aggressively as he desires. As meanwhile, in the battle for P2 in the LMP2 Pro class, after Chris Daines, well, Gaz Williams under pressure from Jamie Dorey here. They're caught behind quite a bit of GT3 traffic as they make the way out of the Mercedes arena and now down towards the Dunlop hairpin. It is the case, it would seem. Hold up a second, what on earth is happening a bit further back? We're hitting that Nürburgring has had a bit of a moment. Now, was that in contact with his teammate? I'm not 100% sure, but Lorenzo Gualtieri he's holding on to the lead, but Tristan Nürburgring has been involved in an incident, a bit of a crash, and as a result, he has lost out in that battle. He's still on to P2 in the IMB Racewear class for the GT3 AMS, but it is the case that Tristan Nürburgring has lost out in that hunt, and Lorenzo Gualtieri will be running to the finish line now with arms outstretched for that checkered flag. As it is the case, there's a gap now of 4 seconds between the two of them, and Tristan Nürburgring, I think at this point, will be thinking if only he could have taken that win, it would have really firmly put a hand on the trophy. But still, we'll have to wait to see how it all goes down at Le Mans regardless. And as he makes his way back up to speed, in the meantime, you see Sam Holman there running a very comfortable P3 in class right now, heading through the Schumacher S. and Holman doing everything right for Hollerton Racing after that win in race number 1 here today, and now in race number 2 he's just simply kept his head down. A P3 is what he deserves for it, but meanwhile Chris Daines has gone on to the final lap, so therefore it will be the case that most of our drivers will have one more lap after their current one if they're not already on to the final lap, much like our overall leader. But we do see in the meantime, hold up a second, we've got Tristan Di Brega ahead of Lorenzo Gualtieri, so I think there was contact between the two of them, and Gualtieri has yielded the position to the Racing Team Astra Blue driver, so sportsmanship being shown there. We didn't see what happened, but Dino Brega is leading now as they make their way through the final corner, and as they come on around, they will go into one more lap with the checker flag not out for them yet. They'll have the white flag waving instead, and now who will be able to hold on out of the pair of them to the finish line next time around? Will it be championship leader Dino Brega, or will it be Lorenzo Gualtieri, his rival in the championship? As they make their way down, Gualtieri, they're really having to seize at the brakes, almost going into the back of his teammate. Dino Brega gives it a bit. Oh, goodness, there's contact between the two of them, and in the end Gualtieri making contact. The gloves are off between them as they make their way through the Mercedes arena, and I think at this point they need to calm it down. But I can tell you one driver right now who'll be very calm and composed as he makes his way through the final corner. He'll make it 2 out of 2 today, and he wanted the wins, and Chris Daines, as he fishtails his way to the line, will make it 2 out of 2 at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. Here's your winner overall in the LMP2 Pro class as he crossed the line for Verano Motorsport. And then we have a sizable gap back to P2 there in the class. That'll go to Gaz Williams, but meanwhile Matthew Turnbull, well, he may be a guest, but he's put in a championship performance here, the Pure Slips driver has, as he comes to cross the line, your winner in the GT3's overall in the GT3 Pro Apex Race Academy class. And then it will be a brief wait before we have Paul Scott make his way on through to take what we suspect will be the win in the LMP2 AM class here. He's 5 seconds ahead of Paul Walton, who is charging after him and closing that gap, but Paul Scott can take it easy, for he has, as he emerges from the final corner, he's done it. He's taken the checkered flag for the LMP2 and win for Next Gen Racing, and then it will be after a very solid race as he's making his way right now through turn number 12. He's needed this. He wanted a Grand Slam going into tonight to make it as comfortable as possible going to Le Mans in a week's time. He's been there in the past and it's all crumbled underneath in the penultimate round, but not today, for as he makes his way through the final corner, he will take the checkered flag in the GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class. Is Matt Emmons, who makes it 2 out of 2 for Next Gen Racing with Sam Case's UK. He crosses the line, and then it will be Tristan Di Brega who takes the win for Racing Team Astra Blue in the end in the GT3 AM IMB Racewear class ahead of Lorenzo Gualtieri. He held off his teammate in the end. I think a few elbows popped out in the proceedings, but my goodness, what brilliant racing action from start to finish across the field. And we have a couple more drivers to come take their checkered flags for their races, but brilliant racing action up and down the field. And despite it all, despite the technical issues we've had today, it's definitely been a feature race worth waiting for, in the fact we've had battles non-stop over 60 minutes, and now we'll look to those race results, subject to stewards' inquiries, of course, as we do present you the overall results first and foremost. And we can see it is the case that after 60 minutes of racing in race 2 at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit in round 11 of the Next Gen Racing at PROTO GT3 Championship, Chris Daines taking the overall win by 22 seconds ahead of Gaz Williams P2, Jamie Dorey completing that overall podium ahead of Peter Herschel and Paul Scott, Dan Skinner P6, Sam Owen P7, Paul Walton P8, and then our GT3 overall winner Matthew Turnbull ahead of Vin Glenn and Eduardo Frankishin to complete the GT3 overall podium. But then as we look to the individual classes, it is the case. We start off with the LMP2 Pro class, and as it pops up here, Chris Daines taking that win, as we said previously, ahead of Gaz Williams, with Jamie Dorey on the final step of the podium behind his teammate, and then Peter Herschel P4 ahead of Dan Skinner completing the top 5. Phil McDougall P6 in a difficult day with that brake failure towards the end of the race. Adam Delmont P7, Robert De Ceunick P8. And as we come to the LMP2 AM class, it was Paul Scott who took the win in the end by 19.5 seconds ahead of Sam Holman, and then Paul Walton, and well, in fact, I believe Sam Holman coming home P2. Well, that is a bit of an error on our time screens there, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that Paul Walton was on course to take that P2. It seems though there's been some sort of post-race penalty applied there. So as a result, Paul Walton being demoted to P3 when all is said and done, and Mark Sykes in the MP4 ahead of Jim Stansman. That's a surprise result for Sam Holman and a welcome one, and Paul Walton will not be too pleased with that. And then it will be the case as we come to our GT3 classes. We start with our GT3 Pro Apex Racing Academy class, and it was Matthew Turnbull taking the win in the end, 16.5 seconds clear of Vin Glenn. Eduardo Francochin coming home P3. Gavin Garnett in the end holding on to P4, and a brilliant drive from Gavin Garnett, has to be said. Carmelo Martello P5 ahead of Matthew Hodges, Maurizio Marconi, Lee Horn, Stefan Albanese and Andrew Holmes. And then we come to our GT3 AM Apex Racing Academy class. And in the end, Matt Emmons making it 2 out of 2 today by 2.2 seconds ahead of teammate Matthew Addy. Nigel Stock last on the podium steps in P3. We can see getting Darren Doherty completing the top 5. And Sean Cranny Swash in the end missing out in P6. And then coming on to our final class, our GT3 AM IMB Racewear class, in a very close battle between the two of them, Tristan Dinabrega taking the win by 3.5 tenths ahead of Lorenzo Gualtieri in a battle between the two. And I think the Racing Team Astra outfits may need to calm them both down after that one, but brilliant racing all the same. Elwin Sykes once again picking up the bottom step of the podium, but a happy P3 ahead of Davide Favo and Mark Arrowsmith to complete our standings. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was race number 2 here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. And that means, despite slight delays, we now get ready for post-round interviews for our selected drivers. We'll be back shortly. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are good to go for our post-round interviews. And as we can see tonight, we have one of our LMP2 drivers, Sam Holman from the AM class, who'll be joining us for an interview, and we'll get to hear his perspective on what has been a triumphant night of results. And then we'll be talking to 3 of our GT3 class drivers, and indeed the GT3 class being full of battling in both races. We start off with Vinglen in what's been a very positive and forward night for Vinglen, picking up 2 second places. We'll hear from Matt Emmons with an absolutely brilliant performance in the GT3 AM class, and then we'll be hopefully speaking to Matthew Turnbull, our guest driver, who picked up 2 wins back-to-back on absolutely brilliant pace. Without further ado, let's bring Sam Holman into the interview room. So as he joins us in the interview room, Sam, obviously missing last week at Suzuka, returning today, a win in the sprint, second place in the feature, must have been the perfect return for yourself. Apologies, Sam, if you're saying something, it's not quite coming through at the moment.
Is that better?
There we go. We can hear you now, Sam.
Yes, go with that one. Sorry, mate. The mic wasn't working. Yeah, far from the standard race, as always. But I'm not too sure what happened in the feature. I definitely crossed the line in P3. So whether Paul had an unserved penalty or not, I'm not sure. But if the result stands, I'll take it.
Oh, indeed. And just winding back to qualifying, good pace shown by yourself in qualifying from start to finish and placing quite high up in the grid. Was that where you wanted to qualify, or did you feel there's a bit more pace out there?
I can't remember I qualified. I thought I was a bit further down, to be honest. I don't think I did very well in qualifying at all, actually. I know I was starting right at the back next to Stanton, and it's one of those things. I've always got a bit more pace in there, but again, it's for me at the moment. Time's the limiting factor. So to be able to turn up and just do what I can is good. So yeah, certainly to work on my pace. There's more there.
Well, you may need to work on your pace, but in the sprint race at the start, one thing you didn't need to work on was staying out of trouble. It was chaos into turn 1. You dodged all the carnage. Just take us through what happened from your perspective.
I got an okay start. I like to have quite a good reaction off the start, and nothing really to write home about. But I managed to get ahead of Stanton, and obviously breaking at the Nürburgring into a hairpin, a downhill hairpin essentially is critical. And I think I moved to defend the inside line, and I think it sort of unsighted Stanton, and he ended up taking it half a field for me. So it's one of those things you have to keep your nose clean, and I somehow avoided the carnage and snuck through, and that was it really. Just did the best I could to keep it on the track.
Indeed, we brought it home, the winner in class in the sprint, and of course that translating over into the feature race, given you starting towards the back of the class once again, did that change your perspective on the strategy, or was it just get your head down and push on with the pace?
As always, it's just get my head down. I know that I know what my true pace is. I know that I can hold a good sort of high midfield position and fight for the podiums if I need to. Obviously, the field is a little bit smaller today, so less people there. I knew Wessels couldn't make the feature, sadly. It was always good to have him there as well. So I knew it was a relatively small field, but as with all these things, you have to finish. So it's still quite important just to get your head down and do what you can.
Oh, indeed. And in terms of the wider complexion of the championship, going into tonight, it was the case you're P5 in the championship, chasing after Paul Williams and Paul Scott. With Williams absent, it's the case you jumped ahead of him, but Paul Scott picking up a win as well means you two are very close now. Do you think P3 is on the cards at Le Mans?
Unfortunately not, because I actually have to concede this is my last race of the season. Again, work commitments have forced my hand on this one. So Paul actually did send me a message after the race and just said, I'm looking forward to it. And I said, yeah, I absolutely would have been. But unfortunately, that's me done. So I'm going to have to take what I've got. But to come back into sim racing, I didn't. Last year was a particularly tricky one for me outside of sim racing. And it's nice for me to be able to sit down and clear my head for a few hours a week and get back into it. So it certainly brought the love back for me, and huge thanks to all the next gen guys and Mark Sykes who've made this championship happen, and everything else. So I'm really looking forward to being back in the next one, hopefully.
Well, I must admit, it's a shame we can't see you out on circuit in a week's time for what would have been a cracking showdown for P3 in the championship. But we understand that sometimes those commitments do come up outside of sim racing. But it has been an absolute joy to see you out of the circuit. And I think everybody tuning in can agree, Sam. It's been great to see you turn up week in, week out and putting in the performances. And I think Paul Scott will miss you, but I think he'll be more motivated to deliver a result, not for just for himself, but also for you. And at the same time, we're very glad that you've been enjoying the series throughout. And if I do have to ask, if you look back over the series, over the course of the season, what has been your sort of favourite moment or favourite moments, if you have any that come to mind?
Put me on the spot there. Well, I have to take a class win. It's taken all season to get there, but and again, it happens as a result of a catastrophic incident. But it's endurance racing. You have to you have to finish the race. Sometimes the bad luck happens to you. Sometimes you just get a stroke of luck. So yeah, I have to take that. I know I've had nothing in particular. I've had some great battles. I remember having a really particularly good one at Spa. I think it was with Paul. I think it was Paul anyway. So yeah, and a few others at Spa as well, actually. So, yeah, probably take that as a highlight. But yeah, gutted to not be at Le Mans. It is my favourite track, or one of my favourite tracks, especially in the prototype. But I would like to say I've got a friend in real world, Jack Fabi, who is actually racing for real at Le Mans Classic this weekend. So I'd like to wish him all the best in the races there.
Oh, well, indeed, we do wish him all the best. And just coming on to that, of course, you said thank you to the guys at NXTGEN and also giving a shout out to your colleague Jack there. But is there anybody else before we let you go who you'd like to say thank you or give a shout out to?
I'll go with Hollerton Racing. Why not? Self plug, self company plug. So you'll go Hollerton Racing, and no, just everyone. Your commentary's been fantastic. Next Gen, Apex, IMB, all the sponsors who ultimately make all of the racing happen for us. So yeah, it's great to be involved with it all, and I'm looking forward to next season.
Oh, indeed. Well, with that, Sam, thank you for joining us in the interview room. Congratulations on your double podium, including your first class win of the season tonight. And whilst I can't say we look forward to seeing you in a week's time, we look forward to seeing you back out on the circuit in a future season.
Thanks, Bob. Look forward to it as well.
Have a nice evening.
Cheers, mate.
So hearing that from Sam Holman, and a little bit of a sad twinge to that interview, of course, the fact he can't be there for Le Mans, one of his favourite circuits. But again, at the same time, beaming with joy, I think, at the result that he was able to achieve today to wrap up his season. And that effectively means that based on a little bit of mental math that I can do very quickly, that unless suddenly there is a major overhaul point from Richard Stanton or Jim Stanton, Sam Holman is guaranteed P5 in the championship. If Paul Williams returns next week, it will be the case that Sam Holman could be at risk of losing P4, but right now it will either be P4 or P5 on the cards for Sam Holman, and that is a demonstration of a great season on his return to sim racing and taking that enjoyment to the next level. And well, we must come from one driver who took it to the next level today to another driver who upped it a level, and that is Vin Glenn, as we're about to get him into the interview room. And Vin Glenn today having an absolutely brilliant run of form in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy Pro class. And well, we're just about to get him into the interview room. A brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and let's bring him on in. So as he joins us in the interview room, Vin, we've been waiting for some time to see you really battling for the lead and outright battling, not caught up in battles that are ruined by LMPs coming through or incidents occurring or safety cars coming on through. And today, you've got exactly that, battling with Matthew Turnbull for both races from start to finish. How did you feel your racing went today?
Yes, I felt very comfortable, and this is also my home Grand Prix, so I'm very proud of me to get P2, because we win, but biggest driver was in front of me, but I got podium. I'm very happy about it.
Oh, indeed, you're right to be happy, because as you say, with Turnbull being a guest driver, it means post-race we will be awarding you the winner's points, and that will effectively be a win, back-to-back wins today at your home circuit, and that's something you can be very proud of. But just dialing it all the way back to the start, qualifying looked really good out there, not quite on the pace of Turnbull, but still qualifying up there. Did you feel as there was a bit more pace in the car, or was that what you wanted in qualifying?
Yeah, I got held up by traffic, so that was a problem. but I think I could have a better lap, but traffic was just in the way. I couldn't get a great lap.
Well, that's a bit unfortunate, but still, may not have been a good lap. We saw you qualify alongside Martello for the sprint race. You two have had great rivalries, particularly at Suzuka last time out. You managed to get the jump on Martello into the first corner, however, and then just went charging after Turnbull. Just take us through that opening lap.
Oh, I don't know really much because it was 2 days ago, but I think I went very quickly to overtake him because I just had more pace than him, I think. So I just had better mood also to go in and try to get my best finish.
Oh, indeed. And a quick move there put you right in the hunt for the lead for the rest of the race. And in terms of going into the feature race, of course, a good result. And you were literally alongside Turnbull for the opening lap. And then Turnbull got ahead of yourself. Were you using him to sort of cut your way through the field? Because we saw you were stuck to the back of him for the course of the 60 minutes.
I used him because it didn't make sense to overtake him because I want to lose time against the other drivers behind me, and I needed also to save fuel. So I used him just for the whole race. So I just went, do not battle anything or don't lose time. This was my main goal.
Well, it worked out for yourself. And also, just take us through that pit stop. You undercut the field and you managed to, well, not undercut, sorry, you managed to fuel save by looks of things and jump 2 places in the pits.
Oh, yes. I don't know what happened. I think I got a great pit stop, just timed everything perfectly, and just go back out again. And I was again behind Turnbull, and this was also my strategy to get behind him, and then drive for the rest of the race behind him.
Well, indeed, it worked out and running the rest of the race behind him. And with those 2 wins, what will be the 2 wins, of course, today, that will put you now effectively, if I do a bit quick mental math, that will put you up into P8 in the championship standings. And with one more round to go, how are you feeling for Le Mans in a week's time?
Le Mans would be maybe a bit difficult, but I think I can manage it. So can maybe be a top 5, I guess.
Oh, well, it'll be interesting to see how you get on, especially with double points on the line, and that could be an opportunity to get yourself close to the top 5 in the championship come the end. But just before we let you go, Vin, is there anybody you'd like to say thank you to or give a shout out to live on air?
On my dad, of course, he has watched now the race, and yes, I don't know. Because of my dad makes picture and great pictures, so shout out of him.
Well, I'm sure your dad will really appreciate that. And we do say hello live on air to Mr. Glenn Senior, I believe, or just Mr. Glenn in general. But with that, Vin, congratulations on your double wins today. And we look forward to seeing you take to the Le Mans circuit for the season finale in a week's time.
Yes.
So hearing that from Vin Glenn, very happy with regards to his performances today. And, well, I think it's the case on his home circuit, no less. It's going to be one of those situations whereby he's aiming for a top 5 in the season finale. Will he be able to do it? I'm confident he'll be in that top 5. I think he'll be gunning for a podium because he's showing so much pace and also the smarts with regards to knowing who to battle and when to battle. And that's a sign of somebody who is right up there at the top of that field. But we'll wait and see if that materialises in practice at Le Mans in the week from now. But we go from Vin Glenn to another driver who played it smart and picked up major points today, and that is Matt Emmons, our AM driver in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy class. And, well, as we bring him into the interview room shortly, let's hear from the driver who I believe has picked up a Grand Slam today at the Nürburgring. So as we bring Matt into the interview room, Matt, you told me before the race you were targeting a Grand Slam at the German circuit today, and if I'm correct, you've managed to achieve it. Just how do you feel knowing that it was the penultimate round and everything's on the line between yourself and Nigel Stock?
Honestly, quite relieved. Like I said to you before the race, I was having flashbacks to last season where into the penultimate round, it all fell apart for me. The ground went from underneath me. So going into qualifying, yeah, I'll be honest, I was a bit worried. I know I'll put the practice in. I knew I could get the lap times, but it's getting it on the day. So when I came out with pole and then set off into the sprint race in the lead, it seemed to calm me down. And going into the feature race, I just didn't seem to have any pressure. I just kept my head down and knew I could do it and keep going.
Indeed, it showed from the outset, and just dialing things all the way back to qualifying. A strong pace and performance from yourself in qualifying, putting you right up there towards the front, if not, I think, on pole for the purposes of qualifying. We did have some difficulty seeing drivers' lap times, but did qualifying go the way you expected?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I think it was a 1:53.3 I got on for me pole lap. So it was about 2 or 3 tenths quicker than I think it was Darren in P2. So it went probably better than I'd hoped. And I must admit, when I set that time, I was more interested in looking at the time delta of where Nigel was and thinking, I need, if he's going to be second, I need to know what lap times he's doing, then I can try and figure out if there's anywhere else I need to make time up.
Indeed, with that focus on Nigel Stock, and I have to ask, when you went into the sprint race, having qualified on pole, and after emerging from the first couple of courses unscathed with all the frantic action that normally occurs in the Mercedes arena on the opening lap of any race at the Nürburgring, were you able to settle down into the race quickly, or was it the case that the hairs on your back were still standing up? Because Nigel Stock did try to make some ground early on in the race.
First couple of laps, yeah, my hairs were on end. I was worried that something was going to go wrong. I mean, I did have a couple of Apex GT Pros spin out in front of me going in out of the Mercedes arena. So that made me worry a bit. And yeah, after a couple of laps, I got behind, I think it was Lee Horn. And I just stuck with him and thought, well, if I can keep the pace with him, I've nothing to worry about behind. Looking at the gap, I was holding my gap to Nigel, so I just kept my head down and got into a rhythm as quick as I could.
Indeed, that rhythm going with you all the way to the checkered flag, and then going into the feature race with Nigel Stock having a difficult performance. Did that change the way you looked at the feature race at all, or did you think, you know what, we've got to go for this now because we're going to put this championship to bed?
Well, based on my pace in the sprint race, I thought I need to go for this, haven't I? Because Le Mans never been kind to me. Last season, I ran out of fuel. The season before that, I retired with damage. So I knew I needed to push and just thought, the bigger the gap, the less I've got to do next week. I don't have to push Nigel and finish second or anything. I think quick maths, I think when I figured it out, if I finish third or above, I'm champion for this season. So I just need to keep my head down and get the practice in and hopefully not let the gremlins into the back of my head from the last 3 seasons, sorry.
Indeed, and just before we come on to your thoughts for Le Mans specifically, towards the end of the feature race, battling with your teammate Matthew Addy, of course, and you two are no stranger to coming together when you're battling for the lead. Was there just a thought in the back of your mind, I have to ask what you thought, please, let's not take one another out this time?
I make sure I ask the mechanics before the race to take the magnets out of our cars to hopefully deny anything like that happening. I did feel a bit bad on Matt because running wide, as he did, I didn't want to have take the place like that. But on a tight and twisty track like that, there's not many overtaking opportunities. I knew I had to go for it then and there, and just hope he saw me coming, so to speak.
Well, I do think he did see you coming in the end. At you two swapped places, and after that it was the case he was given pursuit but not able to take away the win come the checkered flag. And of course, moving ahead now to Le Mans, you were saying a moment ago about the gremlins coming back in and that Le Mans never been too kind to you, but how are you generally feeling, forgetting about the past, how are you feeling going into next week's round? Is it a positive one, or is it a case of we just got one more race to get the job done?
I'll be honest, really positive. I know it's too early to say, having got one hand on the trophy or whatever. But I know I'm in a comfortable position. I know what I need to do next week. But yeah, I can relax a bit. But I know Nigel's got a lot of pace, and all it takes is for me to have one incident with the pace that this class has got. And it could be the championship in smoke. So I just need to try and think what I need to do next week and get the practice in and make sure I can iron out all the kinks and problems now.
Oh, indeed, and we'll have to see whether anything does materialise there or whether it's smooth sailing. But with that being in a week's time, just before we let you go, Matt, is there anybody you'd like to say thank you to or give a shout out to live on the broadcast?
Thank you to you for your amazing work in the comms box again. Now that you've come back from your holiday, I'll make sure I get them padlocks changed. Just thanks to everyone at NXTGEN for allowing me to continue hosting this. Sponsors, Apex Racing Academy and IMB Racewear, everybody watching at home. Yeah, and thank you to all the guest drivers we've had this season and everyone turning up and making it as good as it has been.
Oh, well, Matt, I'll say thank you to you as well for the shout out regards to myself. Indeed, I'm sure everybody will appreciate your thoughts with regards to your gratitudes and whatnot. But with that, we do have to leave you there. And, well, congratulations on your dominant display today at the Nürburgring. And will that championship crown be yours? We can only find out in a week's time. Until then, all the best and take care.
And you, mate. Thank you very much.
Have a good night. So hearing from Matt Emmons there, and well, I think he does feel very positive going into next week's round. You can hear it in his voice. I think it's a case of he's ready to celebrate, but it's not over yet. He still needs to bring that car home behind Nigel Stott. Not one place behind. He can afford to be 2 places behind doing that quick mental math, but it is the case. He's still got one more race and not to let the gremlins of past seasons creep in. We'll have to wait and see if that plays out in practice or whether there is one more sting in the tail. But as we now look from Matt Emmons to Matthew Turnbull, I'm sorry to announce, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't heard anything from our guest driver, so it may be the case that he's not able to join us for an interview tonight. If he does message me before we finish the broadcast, we will jump back to giving him an interview. But until then, it is time for us to wrap up. But one thing I can say, Matthew Turnbull having an absolutely brilliant experience and indeed 2 wins back-to-back as a guest driver in the GT3 Apex Racing Academy Pro class. You can imagine if he was able to take part in the full season, he would be somebody everybody would be keeping their eyes on, whether it be Vin Glenn or Carmelo Martello or Matthew Hodges. He'd be a force to be reckoned with. But of course, this season, it's not to be. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, including what we do in the series we run, why not check out our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk, alternatively our official Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. Also, a big thank you to our partners without whom it'd not be possible for us to bring you this series. That's Apex Racing Academy, apexracingac.com, and IMB Racewear that may be found at imbracewear.com. But now we must pack up our bags and move from Germany to France for the finale. In a week's time, it'll be live, round number 12 at the Circuit des 24 Heures de Mons on Wednesday, the 6th of July, 2022. I hope you're ready, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be fast. It's going to be frantic. It's going to be 2 hours of racing action from start to finish, after which we'll be bringing the curtain down on the championship and all of our outstanding championship awards. And you'll want to be there. You will not want to miss it. But until then, it's goodbye from us at Next Gen Racing. It's goodbye from me, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, have a great weekend ahead. Stay safe, stay smiling, stay positive, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.